What's up, everybody? Jonhson here. As promised, I'll be live somewhere around 5. It's July 13th, 2025. I'll start out with at the beginning, I need to do this more often, but so my official pages are on my link tree, linktr.ee/1776 Nation. There's a lot of fake accounts out there that are not me, so a lot of people need to be careful. linktr.ee/1776 Nation. You'll find all my official accounts. Alright, so there's a lot of people receiving messages from me that's initiated. That's not me. Now, when you message me, I'll respond back. But I don't talk about QFS and your wallet and all these other things. I care less what you do with your money on your personal time. When it comes to federal and state and local government, then yeah, we show you what to do by being a citizen of the United States of America and how to contribute to the way our foundation was set up. But nothing like all this other fraud. So today I'm going to try to be cool, calm, collective. Today my grandmother would have been 95 years old. So it's a special day. Used to be one of those days where I always mark my calendar to make sure that I never forgot it, but I definitely made sure never to forget Grandma. And so she was a sweet soul. And out of my whole life and my mother's life, we never heard her say a cuss word or raise her voice one time. So I'm definitely wish I could say that. So I'm gonna try to not use any kind of 4-letter words today. I'm gonna try. So we'll see how that goes. But you know, there's a quote out there. It says, insanity is doing the same things over and over again, but expecting different results. Well, that's what a lot of people look like right now. A lot of people. And it's one thing to be a liberal. Liberals are expected to look that way because they've never had a solid foundation, whether it be innocently or on purpose. They've never had a solid foundation. They didn't grow up like I did. And if they did and they went awry, then they really have some issues. But there's no reason why Republicans, conservatives, and people who call themselves patriots, there's no reason why they should be questioning President Trump or jumping ship whatsoever. You should be questioning who you're following. That's who you should question. So, for example, you know, it's a military operation, and laws and orders show that. And veterans, not all veterans know what's going on right now. They get a hall pass until they get presented all the laws and orders that are currently invoked. And most veterans will come on board when they see what all is in law currently invoked. And all these laws have been on paper for years, which we're going to get to. But it's all there. Now, whoever is out there saying that it's hogwash and it's baloney, this is a grift, and all these people are showing their IQ. One page. They've never read one line of one page of one publication. One publication alone. One defense budget, national defense authorization alone, 900 to 1,000 pages. And that's a defense budget. That is what, taxpayer dollars is doing, or has been doing. Tariffs are going to do that now, but money aside for defense budget. So if you call that hogwash, baloney, and all this other stuff, then it's coming out of your pocket. Shouldn't you want to know about it? And that's just one tiny aspect of the whole picture. And then when stuff hits the fan, no one ever questions who turned the fan on. See, everybody wants to look at the stuff on the fan. That little four-letter word I'm not going to try to say today. When it hits, everybody wants to, we got to do this, and why aren't you doing this, President Trump, and you wait until the fan is covered with poo before you started fighting. And guys and gals like, all the patriots, and the real patriots, all the guys and gals of the patriot world are saying, well, where have you been? Welcome over, but hey, before you start questioning, jumping ship, persecuting, accusing, and all these other things, and losing pay, you probably need to know the blueprint first. There's a plan in place. This group over here calls it BS and hogwash because they have two little IQs fighting for 4 chambers in their brain, and they won't slow down and go, look, there's a method to the madness. There's a method to it. Somebody's got to know what's going on. And I just happen to be one of those people. And the other people will say, well, why are you the one? How is it you're worried about stuff that doesn't matter. You're burning daylight. Just like John Wayne's quote, we're burning daylight. You're burning daylight when you're asking all the questions that don't even matter. What you should be going is, dang, this guy's got #1 best-selling books. It's chronological order. It's all the homework's been done for you. All of it. I did it for you. So it's kind of like when you were in school. A lot of you remember these things. I use them sometimes, but depending on what I was cramming that week. But you have these little things called Cliff Notes that you could purchase, that someone like me went and read the book for you. All right, and then your teacher said you got to summarize that chapter, and you're like, isn't it already summarized? Isn't that the whole point of a book? No, a summary. Do a summary of what happened in a chapter. So guys like me would go, hey, I got the summary right here, but guess what? You're going to pay for it because I did all the homework you didn't want to do. So President Trump, just yesterday, roasted everybody. I'd already done it. And guess who got all the slack for it? But guess who was ahead of the commander-in-chief? What did one of the commanders say the other evening that I was on the podcast with? My avid followers know. Special operations are always 2, 3, 5 years ahead of everybody else. Why do you think my books have been in print since December 2023, the first one? Well, it stemmed from my documents that I had written from 2017 to 2021, published January 2021. It's all there. The homework's already been done. So, I had a friend, we were talking yesterday, and I was like, had a comment this week, said, why are you always complaining? You're starting to complain. I'm like, I'm not complaining. If what I'm doing is your definition of complaining, then my definition of a sissy with no IQ is you. So if you get to make a definition, I get to make one. That's how that works. All right. This is called passion. It's on my time. It's on my dime. And so I care about people. Now, at the end of the day, somebody has to care. At the end of the day, we have interstates or freeways, wherever you are, you want to call them, whatever. It's an interstate. But by terminology and where they were established, they're called an interstate, not a freeway. But by definition, so we all share these interstates. We have to cross bridges, right, that were built by very brilliant men and women, right here. They all have to get paid for. But just think if we were riding down the highway and everything was open to be bumper cars based on, let's say that if you're a Republican, you have to drive a red vehicle, and you're a Democrat, you have to drive a blue. And there's no other color. So when you're driving down the highway and you go, oh, look at that. That is eccentric blue. That is not just blue. That is blue, 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 blue. Oh, they are really a liberal. Bam! So we don't do that, do we? No, we don't go to that extreme. So how is it we can live and let live on the highway, but we can't live and let live everywhere else? Now, it may be a dumb illustration, but it's kind of smart if you think about it in another way. How did we get here? How did we get to this place in history where there's so many variables out there that no one has a foundation? Most everybody, you think you do, but you're grabbing here one day and you're grabbing over here and you're grabbing here and you're grabbing there. You don't have to. There's a solid foundation. President Trump roasted everybody yesterday. Roasted everybody. Because you're focused, the people who are focusing on Epstein, you're focusing on one little tiny little spectrum out of a bigger picture. I have the blueprint to the bigger picture. And the bigger picture actually helps you go down to the little slices and pick the slice up and understand the slice once you get the bigger picture and where we're headed. The end goal is for everybody to work together. The end goal is that. Our founders had differences, but they all worked together. Because the founders who got out in the streets and fought, they reminded the British and they reminded people along the way, if you don't want to talk this out this way, we've already shown you what we'll do with a little tea party. You want to do that again, or you want to talk? So we're not doing that with all these liberals out there. We're not doing that. And it would be game over really quick for them. They don't realize, I mean, you're talking trash in an armed nation. And we wouldn't even have to fire a shot. All I'm going to do is take the butt end of a Belgium 12-gauge shotgun and crack you over the head with it. I'm not even have to pull the trigger. You will sit down and talk when a Belgium butt end of a 12-gauge Browning shotgun hits you right here. You will talk. If you don't want to talk as we're willing to do already. So there's no reason why Republicans, conservatives, and quote-unquote patriots are questioning the commander. If you don't know what the commander's working with, you can't question the guy. You look atrocious to people who have read and studied. So the bigger picture is to drain the swamp. I mean, every conservative, Republican, patriot chanted, drain that swamp, drain. Why'd you chant that if you don't know what you're looking at? You're watching the swamp being drained right in front of you. So what? Oh, it's because you got all in on the rah-rah and the pep rally. You just oh, it's a pep rally going on and oh, all these people are doing it too. Well, I'm going to do it too. Instead of looking at what the commander's working with. That's what you got to look at. What is President Trump working with? He's not waking up every morning going, well, what are we doing today? What do you think you want to do? What do you want to do? You got to drink some coffee first? Oh, okay. He's not firing off at the hips. And people could easily, everybody put this together if you would sit and look at the chronological order of laws and orders. Laws and orders have all the answers. That's what they're working with. For the first time in world history, the commander, the generals, world leaders, and our leaders, bipartisan, are all working on that. What people are getting hung up on is the theater. They're looking at the theater, and they're looking at distraction pieces that are made for that. Until you find someone like me. So once you've heard of me, once you've seen me, once you've listened to me, you have no excuses whatsoever. That's why I was put here. And the Bible, for all the Christians out there, the Bible even tells you that. The Bible says once one person has heard one time, you've heard. It's on you then. So there's no reason to be replicating a swamp right now. A lot of people, ye of little faith, not practicing your faith. Faith is believing in things that are unseen. You believe in God, right? And I've got a preacher friend, he's actually my cousin too, but he's a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, but a relative. He said everybody has faith. They don't realize it. He said when you drive down the highway, especially on a 2-lane highway, and you pass an 18-wheeler, both of you doing 65 or 70 miles an hour, you have faith. So you have to apply your faith. You have to apply it here. Not just here, you got to apply it here. The Bible tells you too, I didn't give you the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. A sound mind, does that mean you jump ship because you don't know what's going on? Does that mean you yell and you look like a bunch of liberals who don't know what's going on? They look like chickens with their head cut off just running around, and a bunch of delinquents that don't know what's going on? Does that mean you look like them? What? That don't sound like any kind of faith to me. So why do people do it? It's because you don't trust the president. You claim you voted for him, you claim you're a supporter of him, you don't trust him. If you trusted him, then you wouldn't lose your faith over one little tiny thing. You would seek to see the bigger picture. Let me get a sip of my good old coffee. Military laws and orders are not conspiracy theories. You're also watching a fundamental reset, just like the Declaration of Independence outlines it. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations. I mean, go read the Declaration. And then you got to look at the history again really fast before we get to everything. The founders started a war before anything. They started a war. The Battle of Lexington and Concord. The Midnight Rider, what I wrote the books about. This is part 2. But what I wrote these books about. The Midnight Rider. Paul Revere. Middle of the morning. April 18th, 19th. Riding through the town. The redcoats are coming. The British are coming. The Midnight Rider rides again. The Midnight Rider, the original Midnight Rider. And he wasn't the only one. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of women were Midnight Riders. So women, you know I always give you tribute because you read, you study, and you also want to prove a guy wrong. Let's be honest. You read and studied. A lot of you read and studied because you wanted to try to prove me wrong. And you can't, because that ain't how laws and orders work. So a lot of women were Midnight Riders. And that started the war. Battle of Lexington and Concord, the first battle. There wasn't a constitution. There wasn't a Declaration of Independence. There wasn't an established military. There wasn't military law yet. So our founders started a war before they had anything on paper to show what they were fighting for. Then, a couple months later, June 14th, 1775, the Army was established. June the 30th, 1775, the first war articles, which are military law. Then the Navy, October 13th. Then your Marine Corps, November the 10th. Then your first flag was December the 3rd, the Union Jack flag. December the 3rd. I'm pretty sure 1775 came before 1776. And then you had July 4th, 1776, Declaration of Independence signed. How is it that liberals can celebrate 4th of July? Some didn't, but the ones that do, you're celebrating a nation fought for by weapons. All right. Then you move forward. November the 15th, 1777, the Articles of Confederation, which was the first constitution after the war had started, which includes Canada in there as well. And then June 14th, 1777, on the 2-year anniversary of the Army, the flag, the Betsy Ross flag, not the Union Jack, but the Betsy Ross flag, that flag was sworn into Congress. 51 days later, the very first place that the American flag flew, the very first place, was at the bloodiest battle of the Revolutionary War? Can you tell me why Colin Kaepernick was kneeling down again, saying that flag is oppression to people? I'm pretty sure that flag was for military first. And so, June 14th, 1777. The war ended 1783. Do you realize that our founders signed again the Declaration of Independence 7 years before the war ended? and then your Constitution. September the 17th, 1787, 4 years after the war. And then, starting in October, just a month later, not even a full month, but a month later, the only three of the founders, but John Jay, Alexander Hamilton, and James Madison, who's known as the father of the Constitution, they wrote these things called the Federalist Papers. From October 1787 to August 1788. And they were re-emphasizing how great the Constitution was going to be. And they re-emphasized so much the Constitution, Article 4, Section 4, is a republic, that in Federalist Paper number 10 and number 14, guess what they put in there? That pure democracies are dangerous. So why is it that liberals call it a democracy? So when President Trump uses the term democracy, yeah, we want to destroy democracy because it ain't a democracy. We're not a democracy. Our founders wrote about democracies and how dangerous they are. So then, when you move forward, March the 4th, 1789 is when the Constitution was enacted, meaning that's when it went into action. It was written in 1787, but 1789 is when it was enacted. And then, 1791, the anti-federalists, who were more state-oriented, not federal, they wanted a second constitution. They didn't really like the Constitution. But James Madison said, okay, you write something and you give it to us. But he took their literature and he drafted the Bill of Rights where it would fit accordingly in as the amendments of the Constitution. James Madison. It was also James Madison having to go into the United States Supreme Court in 1803, 16 years after he wrote the Constitution, the main author. He's the main author. That's why they call him the father of the Constitution. He's the main author. Having to go into the Supreme Court, which he established here intellectually, and they put it into action. He had to go into the Supreme Court and tell a justice what a law looked like. It's a landmark landslide case. Marbury versus Madison, 1803. So when a liberal uses the term Constitution, that's the first things you should think of. You should apply everything that I just said. They look atrocious. The word Constitution should be remotely close to your vocabulary when it comes to what's going on. It's the highest law in the land, but it's a broad governance. It's a broad governance. And it specifically says what the Congress should do, executive branch, legislative, which is Congress, executive, president, and then your judicial branch. Laws are the actual fruits, or whatever you want to call it, the productivity. There's all kinds of language you can put there. Laws are under that. Orders are enforcing the law. That's how that works. So it's atrocious for a liberal, especially, to use the term Constitution in any kind of argument. Because then they'll turn around and say, well, I have a First Amendment. I'm like, do you realize that the man, the father of the Constitution, who drafted the Constitution, the main author, did you see his writings in the Federalist Papers, same guy, about democracies are dangerous? And then did you know that he's the one who wrote the First Amendments as well? The first, second, the first 10, which they're known as the Bill of Rights. Did you know that? So that's why it's a trouble. So Republicans, you don't want to look like liberals. You don't want to look just like them. Conservatives, patriots, whatever you call yourself, President Trump supporter. You don't want to look like that. But what is taking place right now is a unique strategy. It's unique and pre-planned. And it's all lawful. So you don't want to look like these people. You want to empower yourself. And so many people, the answers are right in front of you, and you're still just going over the drama and propaganda. I call it ball of yarn information. It looks like a ball of yarn. And you end up with nothing during the day but what? Your fanny's all ruffled, and you just want to be angry and bitter. You know? Why? There's an answer there. It provides peace, solace, comfort, happiness, joy, smiles, laughs, comfort, whatever you want to call it. Lets you enjoy your coffee a little bit better, I know that. So you can get mad at the messenger, that's fine. I'm prepared for the battle. It just falls right off. You ever seen water hit a duct? It just rolls right off. Now I will defend my name, so when I see my name, I'll defend it. But defending, see, so many people don't listen to terminology anymore. They don't know terminology. So there's a difference in complaining and defending. There's all kinds of differences. So again, there's no way President Trump did this as a regular president whatsoever. He was an outsider, not a politician. All right. It was perfect for military. Now I can make a case how the military National Guard took over the 2016 election, but that's unnecessary for the moments until people catch up on everything. They have been deployed to 2018, 20, 22, and 2024 elections. First time in history, the National Guard are out there. We also have Title 18, Section 592, I believe it is, or 593, but it's 592, where it talks about how the troops cannot be at the polls unless they're on official duty. So if there was a troop or a soldier at a poll and they're in uniform and they're not on official duty, they could be charged. Title 18 is federal crimes. So it could be it's a federal law if a soldier is at a poll and they're not on official duty. And you can face criminal, there's all kinds of, but also punishment, imprisonment, and also fines for that. So when you have evidence of law of the National Guard deploying there, then you got to have a Title 10 order there because that's a federal thing. It's not a state thing. And the only Title 10 there is President Trump. And for the people who out there who ask decent questions, this is a simple question, but I get it. For the people who say, well, what if that order's 5 years old, how's it still active? Because it's not been revoked. If it's never been revoked, it's still active. Now, some presidents in the past, but the past don't matter right now. There's a line drawn in the sand November the 8th, 2016. That's why every patriot, every Republican, every conservative, you have to draw a line. And there's laws that also divide that line. Everything that you've seen from November the 8th, but really January the 20th, 2017, but November the 8th is the election day of 2016. Every law you've seen has been enforced. And that's why it's hilarious for people like me who see Republicans, conservatives, patriots jumping ship, because I'm like, if you only knew the laws and orders, you'd see the visuals of them being enforced. And it's even more hilarious because when they say it's unconstitutional and, he's a violating the Constitution and he's a dictator and all these other, he's a threat to this and a threat to that and he's destroyed. All of these laws that President Trump are using, the laws, not the orders, all of the laws have been in law. Under every president, every Congress, from 2016 back, all the laws President Trump's using are their laws. Already been on paper. The orders are separate. All of his orders are his orders, right? But the laws have been on paper. So it looks... You have to use the term stupid. Ignorant is a whole other category. But it's hilarious and stupid when people say, it's unconstitutional. You probably want to know the laws that's been invoked and the orders up under them that's enforcing them. All these laws have been on paper. So that's why it looks atrocious right now. I mean, especially where we are right now, July 2025, there's no excuses whatsoever. None. There's no way he did it as a sitting president, normal president, constitutional president, and you have evidence of that. But you got to know the laws and orders first. And it's just like I tell people, wherever you are in your educational level, if you know the terminology, great. Then now go read the laws and orders and then apply those. If you know some laws and orders and a little bit about legislation and procedure and, invocation, revocations and all that, then you got to go see what's been invoked, what's been revoked. All right? But if you know all that, then you're good. You just have to apply the things that may be missing, depending on what puzzle you have. But if you don't know the terms, the definitions, the glossary, the index, or any of that nature, if all this is foreign to you, then you got to go study that first. You got to know what a continuity government is. What is a presidential emergency action document? What is an executive order? What is a national emergency? What does it mean when they're paired together? You got to know and study all that. So, he couldn't do it as a regular president. And when you see the line in the sand, lawful line in the sand, you'll see the past. But President Trump is taking all of the laws in their language and beating them with their own system and language. That's why it looks funny when you hear people say, isn't that in corporate? Well, isn't this corporate? Well, this executive order, isn't that corporate? No, executive orders aren't corporate. Executive orders have been around since the foundation. So see, that's where people have to go study the foundation and go read the Constitution. Then read what the Constitution is saying for the Congress to do, the legislative branch to do, the executive branch to do, the judicial branch to do. Go read the original Constitution as it sits. Then go read the laws. Now, there's a ton of laws on books now. There are some laws. But all that matters right now are the federal laws that pair with military laws that outline this military occupation, continuity government, government in exile, all the other terms that are found in special operations. Everything that President Trump has invoked ties to special operation, ties to irregular warfare, ties to unconventional warfare. It's unconventional for a reason. So most of you have been in a conventional setting because that's what we're supposed to be in. We shouldn't want the military to have to go into the streets. No. But they can lawfully. Joint Publication 3-57. They can lawfully if the Constitution or Congress deems so. Well, Congress has deemed so. And we're going to get to that. So see, a lot of people are just all over the board because they don't have a foundation. And if you're a President Trump supporter, you should seek to know that foundation. And once you seek that foundation, you're going to realize why I'm here and why so many people follow me and why my books sell like they do. But they are number one bestsellers. They didn't get there for nothing. They got there because of people. And the reviews are there because of people who read and studied and go, holy smokes, this is world history. It is world history. So I'm going to read this little thing that President Roosevelt said, December the 8th, 1941, the day after Pearl Harbor. And it replicates exactly what President Trump, when he walked down and took his oath January the 20th, 2017, and the military came down behind him, and the headbands that I've shown multiple times, military intelligence and judge advocate general. And then I tie in the laws and the orders of that day forward to this day, and how you're watching the most biblical, monumental, historical operation known to man. But I've done all the homework for you with all the chronological orders of the laws and the orders. And you just can't argue with it once you see it. So I'm going to read this by Roosevelt. He said, this is his message to Congress September the 7th, 1942, in which he demanded that Congress forthwith repeal certain provisions of the Emergency Price Control Act of the previous January 30th. This is what President Roosevelt, this is how it reads now, and I'll post this later, but President Roosevelt formulated his conception of his powers as, and it puts, quotes, Commander-in-Chief in wartime, as follows. This is what he said. I asked the Congress to take this action by the 1st of October. Inaction on your part by that date will leave me with an inescapable responsibility to the people of this country to see that the war effort is no longer imperiled by the threat of economic chaos. In the event that the Congress shall fail to act, listen, in the event that Congress should fail to act and act adequately, I shall accept the responsibility and I will act. At the same time, that farm prices are stabilized, wages can and will be stabilized also. This I will do. The President has the powers under the Constitution and under congressional acts to take measures necessary to avert a disaster which would interfere with the winning of the war. I have given the most thoughtful consideration to meeting this issue without further reference to the Congress. I have determined, however, on this vital matter to consult with the Congress. The American people can be sure that I will use my powers with the full sense of my responsibility to the Constitution and to my country. The American people can also be sure that I shall not hesitate to use every power vested in me to accomplish the defeat of our enemies in any part of the world where our own safety demands such defeat. When the war is won, listen, what did President Trump say on January 20th, 2017? We're taking the power out of D.C. and giving it back to you, the people. Listen to what Roosevelt said. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was in his 4th term, voted on by the people, 4th term, 13th year, when he died in office. Constitution has nowhere does it say term limits on the president. Listen, when the war is won, the powers under which I act automatically revert to the people, to whom they belong. Now, if you Republicans, conservatives, patriots that jumped ship all this past week, if you can honestly say that you believe this whole time that the power's been in your hands, you're a fool. That's the harshest 4-letter word that I could say today. You're a fool. They haven't been. You haven't had any power. But you also don't need it right now because most of you look atrocious. You look, you look ye of little faith. You look like the reason Jesus went into the temple and flipped over the tables. Then you wonder why a veteran like me has a little kind of passionate attitude? Because you look just like these hypocrites. You don't want to be called that? Then do what? Put up or shut up. You know what putting up means? Reading the laws and orders by the man you claim to support. Then you got people out there who'll say stuff like, why don't they just come out with it and show it to us? They are showing it to you. But you have a responsibility. And if you're asking that kind of question, you obviously just displayed you don't even know your responsibility. You don't know your duty. You don't know anything of what you're supposed to be doing under the term, we the people. That is the most watered down 3 words in our history, we the people. The people don't even know what to do with your responsibility and your duty. And there was so much crap that had festered in every facet. That's why it had to be a top-down operation, not a bottom-up, because people look atrocious. You have no foundation. Everybody grasping for straws everywhere. If you'll shut up long enough and see, just shut up. Shut up. Shut the you-know-what up and put all the other clutter everywhere else and go to President Trump's formula, which is what I'm showing you, the laws and the orders of what he's working with, the unique strategy, then you would know a little bit more of your responsibility and your duty. So, 1951 and 1973. 1951, Congress violated the Constitution and put term limits on the president. Why didn't they put it on themselves? I wonder. So then you got to look at everything from 1941 to 2001. That paints the solid picture. 1941, December the 7th, Pearl Harbor. Then when we get involved with World War II, all right. Then you got to look at shortly after that. 1949, NATO was established. 1950, we went into Korea. All right. 1951, Congress violated the Constitution, put term limits on the president, but not themselves. 1955, Vietnam starts up. 1961, President Dwight D. Eisenhower, who established continuity governments and presidential emergency action documents which coincide with each other. 1961, January the 17th, 1961, he had a thing called the Military Industrial Complex speech, where he said he didn't like where the military was going and medical fields because of what? Money. Now do you realize why a lot of veterans have no clue what's going on right now? They're all service, all title, but no military laws and orders. They don't even know the laws and orders of what they served under. That's why you see some of these people out there in the streets claiming to be veterans, yelling at the National Guard. Liberals look atrocious, but when a veteran is doing that to the lowest form of atrocious, when it's all right here. So 1961, 1963, JFK in January goes around the Federal Reserve straight to the Treasury and does what? Takes about $4 billion. What happened 11 months later? In November 1963. 1968, Lyndon Johnson, they leave the gold standard. They enact a thing called the Unified Budget Act. They took your Social Security, the highway funds, general budget, and all. They consolidated all these things together in one pot. That's dangerous. Guess who Lyndon Johnson's CIA director was? George Herbert Walker Bush. George Sr. 1971. That's when Congress created a thing called inflation. They made the dollar as valuable as they wanted it or invaluable. And they started playing with your money. And it started doing that. Up, down, up, down, up, down. All that stuff. 1973. Congress puts more limitations on the president with the War Powers Resolution Act, which is where they amended the War Powers Act from 41 and 42. Who was the president again in 1941 and 42? Whose speech did I just read from? Where he was saying we're going to give the power back to the people after we do what we're supposed to do by averting more disasters. Did you see Obama do that? Did you see George Bush do that? Did you see Clinton do that? Did you see George Herbert Walker Bush do that? Did you see Carter do that? All of you living during that time period, did you see that? Reagan tried, but when he got too charismatic, then what did the swamp do? Took a shot at him. You've witnessed this stuff. You're just not applying it. And a lot of you are still asking the wrong questions. Because you just want to put a comment in the comment box. I'm talking to Instagram. You just want to put a comment in the comment box, but you don't listen, you don't apply. There's a formula here. President Trump's draining the swamp as an outsider. And they're resetting the foundation. It's a reset of the foundation. He's reversing the system on them. He's using all of their language and reversing them. It's a counter-psychological operation. You'll hear people out there saying it's a psyop. No, it's not. It's a counter-psyop. They psyoped you during the whole time, making you think that they were operating on laws and orders. They weren't. They quoted them when it sounded good, and when they thought the people were about to catch on to something, then they quote something, and they did what? They misquoted it. And what did people do? Oh, he just quoted law. And the people never did what? Went to look at the law and applied. That law and that visual don't add up. No wonder we look, I'm not ever going to stop using the word stupid. People look stupid. Because President Trump is reversing everything. He's not one of them, and the Republicans and conservatives and all them who said he's one of them and all that, over Epstein, little bitty tiny slice of the pie, and Iran, little bitty tiny slice of the pie. So if the laws were unconstitutional again, then you got to ask your question, well, why were they on the law books? Because President Trump, once you know the line in the sand, November the 8th, 2016, why were they on the law books? Every one of these people claiming it's unconstitutional, guess what they were? Senators, House of Representatives, Speaker of the House, in the old system. So if it's unconstitutional now, then it was what? Unconstitutional then. See how simple this is? But it's not unconstitutional. They just don't like that someone came in, the military. They didn't realize the military had infiltrated them. Good guys. All the good guys infiltrated. And it's doing what? Doing what's best by the people. Once you realize the laws and orders, they do matter. So when President Trump says the best is yet to come, that's a chess move. It just means we're not going to beat them. So for the people who say, why don't they just come out and say it? Because we're resetting everything. Every single facet of law, order, whatever it is, economics, banks, you name it. Every facet had festered with the swamp. Everything had to be reset. So what's that require? Manpower. You got to have people who want to be in these positions. Then when you get them in those positions, they got to be done what? Here's the quality assurance. Here's your responsibility. Here's your accountability. Here's where you got to be transparent. Your transparency, you got to be transparent. You got to find people who fit all this. And then you got to do what? Trial by error. You got to put these people in place and see if they're going to do what's right. By what? Laws, orders, rules, procedures, protocol, standards, etiquettes. I mean, this stuff is not difficult, and people make it difficult. So you got to think of all the stuff that festered and had to be reset, and that's what they're doing. And this stuff takes time. Then you got to find the people again. That takes time. It takes time. Everybody want this thing to be on and off like a light switch. Man, I don't know what kind of life you live, but you must not be living life too well. Because I've had all kinds of ups and downs in my life, but you cowboy up, you realize it's part of life, and then when you have a down, you go, okay, how did I get down? How did I get up? I mean, you got to dust yourself off, right? Whatever it is. But so many people are asking the wrong questions. So the best is yet to come means I'm not going to beat you. I'm going to trap you, humiliate you, and then you're going to damn yourself. That's what they've done to the deep state. They funneled them into a trap. And they've let them tell on themselves and let them hang themselves. Because sometimes when you tattle on people, they don't learn their lesson. Versus letting them hang themselves or damn themselves and tell on themselves, then they do what? It's humiliating. All right? And then all the people who thought these people were great and quoted law and quoted scripture and all these other things, all these people that people thought were high on the pedestal, all of a sudden when they find out, oh my, what? And it's evidence there, then they do what? They tell on themselves. Versus a tattler. No one learns anything with a tattletale. So when you people out there say, why don't they just go ahead and show everything? You're missing the point. You're missing the whole point of a reset, a fundamental reset to do what? Reestablish accountability, responsibility, transparency, honesty, which leads to what? Sustainability and maintainability. When everybody's on the same accord and knows what's going on, then you can have more what? Cohesiveness on what the goal is. Iran, Russia, Israel. Guess where they all are? So all these people out there, these Republicans, conservatives, I'm about to put one on you now. Now's your time to be beat down by the Lord today. I'm not going to say any words. I'm not said a wordy dirt yet. But now's your time to get slapped upside the noggin like you need. You need a quick backhand, some of you, a virtual backhand. All right. So all these people who jumped ship, I went back. I'm going to resurface this. I'd already put this and stuff way back yonder. as the old saying in the South. Way back yonder. Now we're going to bring it back. My dad tells people all the time, I've forgotten more Alabama football than you know. Well, I've forgotten more of this stuff than you know. So go back and pull this back out. All right. 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. All of the National Defense Authorization Acts, which are your defense budgets, meaning how your military, our military, us, the veterans, but everybody in the military gets paid. All right. National Defense Authorization Acts, defense budgets. Every single one of them has Israel in there, Russia in there, and also Iran in there. So when you hear a liberal out there saying, oh, it's unconstitutional and all these other things that they're spewing, you Republicans, conservatives, patriots, you don't want to look like them because it's already in the NDAAs and it's all kinds of things in there. Talks about even the reports on the attempts to hurt and harm, assassinate leaders in the NDAA. And they ain't in all of them. So there's certain portions that are in certain ones depending on where they were at that time in history and what's going on. So if you look at the NDAA of like 2022, who did the world think was president from 2021 to 2025? Quote unquote Joe. Not by law and not by special operations. You watched an actor. But by law and also special operations, when you go read the NDAAs, the National Defense Authorization Acts of the years that people thought he was quote unquote president, the stuff in them, it escalated. All the verbiage escalated from 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. It escalated. Meaning Iran built up. In one of those NDAAs, it talks about the enrichment. If it reaches 60% enrichment. Do you know what Obama's great Iran deal says? On congressional reports now, and also on ObamaWhiteHouse.archives.gov, Obama's great Iran deal, Iran was supposed to have a total enrichment of 3.67%. 3.67%. Do you know what they were at? 83.7. Do you know what the number is that the International Atomic Energy Agency uses for a full bomb? 90%. This is where Republicans, conservatives don't listen. They feed on drama and propaganda, which is what? The swamp. That's a direct replication of the swamp. And here we have an NDAA, a National Defense Authorization Act, all defense budgets, telling that to report. Well, the report's there. General reported it. And we have liberals and Republicans and conservatives all looking cohesive together, jumping ship with President Trump. The liberals never supported him, but the Republicans are looking at the liberals. When there's a report from our generals, very brilliant men and women, generals, that yep, Iran is here. And guess what Iran, the great Obama deal also said in it? Fordo was to not have nothing, not one single thing nuclear in Fordo. It ended up being the main site that was hit with nuclear facilities. So then you go to Jimmy Carter, Executive Order 12170, 1979 with Iran. It's been continued every 2 years since 1979. And you don't think there wasn't a swamp? They were focused on what? What did George Bush Jr. do? Tell you there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? Never found them. Wasn't there. They made all these wars up in the 80s, the 90s, and 2000s. They read 9/11. Same thing. And the whole time, Iran was building their facilities, and they were doing what? Chanting who? Death to whom? Israel and America. Look at all these Republican conservatives talking about Israel. Look at all these people who told, "Oh, you're going to be sorry that you even supported Israel." Well, why does the NDAA support them? Why does President Trump support Benjamin Netanyahu? You people, you look like the Bible. You look like the ones where the Bible says all those who say, yeah, yeah, Lord, Lord, won't enter the kingdom of heaven. You don't know too much about the God you claim to serve, Christians. You don't know too much about Jesus Christ, the Savior you claim to serve. You don't know too much about the Bible that you used to sing about growing up. You don't know too much about that. You also don't know too much about military laws and military strategies, because also in military publications starting in 2018 and 2019 is laced with support for Israel and taking out the caliphate, taking out Hamas, taking out the Houthis, taking out Iran. You don't know too much about the man you claim to support, much less the military you also claim to support. You don't know too much about it. And the God some of you claim that you worship and are a child of. You don't know too much about it. And you look atrocious because you don't have a foundation. You have a basis of a ball of yarn drama, and you love you some ball of yarn drama, but you don't love a foundation. So if you want a foundation, it's all there. You have no excuses. The NDAAs tell in there 60% once. I thought it was only supposed to be 3.67%. 60%. So when you follow my posts on Facebook and Telegram, where I can put a lot more content on there, you got to read all of it. Sorry. It's long post, but you got to read all of it. This stuff ain't answered in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. So the NDAAs, all right. Also, there's congressional reports. Now, this is so hilarious, and it proves everything if people will listen as well. If you'll just listen for a moment. I did it the other night, but we're going to do it again. There's Iran congressional reports. So congressional reports on Iran, however you want to look at it. They're Iranian congressional reports by the Congress. Obama had 20 of them. About Iran now. 20 congressional reports by the president. Secretary of Defense had a few, Secretary of State, etc. But presidential reports. Obama had 20 about Iran to Congress. All right. President Trump had 4. The last report by President Trump about Iran was December the 20th, 2019. That just so happens to be the date that a Democratic-controlled House of Representatives under President Trump introduced the war order that every single National Guard and Reserve component are acting on right now. December the 20th, 2019. You hear me like a broken record. Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. It's all there. It's still active because none of these laws and none of these orders have been revoked. The last presidential report by President Trump was on the same day that a Democratic House introduced the war order, Republican Senate passed, and amended to Title 50, Chapter 33, the War Powers Act of 1973. It's bipartisan, straight out the gate. So when you see all these head pieces and hit pieces on President Trump about Congress said this, Jasmine Crockett, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren, and all them unconstitutional, they're making them expose themselves. All right? It's either exposure or a distraction piece. It's most definitely constitutional, but it's also bipartisan. And then when you look at the National Defense Authorization Acts of 2021, 2022, 2023, that would be quote-unquote Biden for the normies out there that thought he was real and thought he was president, but don't know any kind of laws, strategic operations, special operations, all right, unconventional warfare, irregular warfare, not your norm, right? But laws show it is. So how could it be unconstitutional if quote-unquote Biden and the NDAAs were escalating the whole time, leading to what you saw with Iran? So now watch this again. So the last presidential report by President Trump was 2019, December the 20th. The next presidential report about Iran was on December 23rd, 2024, which would be 28 days before President Trump just took office again, visually. Now, your average person is going to say, well, that's Biden. Biden was president December 23rd, 2024. Not by law. Now, I'm going to show you something. I'm going to use Obama. Now, quit thinking about Obama and what he is and what he ain't and all that. Now, listen and watch. So, in Title 22, Chapter 93, all right, which is your... it's your foreign relations, and it's on, actually, the Chapter 93. So Title 22 is your foreign relations. Chapter 93 is actually United States dash, the dash matters, Israel cooperation. Israel. Whoa. Israel cooperation? And Obama in the same spot? Uh-oh. Watch out, you Christians out there. Whoa, don't try to throw your phone here. You know, because you were wrong the whole time. But you scroll down here, all right, and Obama has an executive document entry. All right. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do both of them at the same time. All right. Or you can read it. You can hear the difference. You got to listen, though. Got to make sure you listen. So in Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, that a Democratic House introduced under President Trump and Republican Senate passed it, amended it. If you scroll to the bottom, there's an executive document down there. Now watch. I'm going to show you how you read these things. Again, I've broken this down before, but I'm going to show you another way to do this. It says Memorandum of President of the United States, July 19, 2021. Well, the July 19th is the present day. Whoever inserted this, because it wasn't quote-unquote Biden. But the Memorandum of President, that's always said like that. It don't say Memorandum of the President, meaning establishment of a president, the president of that moment. It says Memorandum of President. So that's very key. It says Memorandum for the Secretary of Defense. Now, to the average person, they would think this is Biden. But watch how you break this down. It says, by the authority vested in me as president, not the president, the president. It says as president. It always reads this way. By the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including Section 301 of Title 3 United States Code. All of that right there that I just read is always put like that. Always. And it's always Section 301 of Title 3. It's always put like that in an entry. So that's always. Now, this portion would be your normal sitting president. Now listen. It says, I hereby delegate to the Secretary of Defense the authority and functions vested in the President of Section 1550 on the use of military force and support of partner forces to the Congress. Now, it says entry J.R. Biden Jr. But I'm going to show you how it's not him, and was not him, and he wasn't real by laws, orders, but also special operations, unconventional warfare, irregular warfare. Again. Now we're going to hop back to Title 22, Chapter 93, to Barack Obama's executive document entry. Memorandum of President of the United States, January 15, 2013. Memorandum for the Secretary of State. It says, by the authority vested in me as President, by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including Section 301 of Title 3, see, all the same. Now, it's present day. I hereby delegate to you all the functions conferred upon the President by subsections A and B of Section 6 of Public Law 112-150. You will exercise the functions in coordinations with the Secretary of Defense. That you, in this context, was the memorandum to who? The Secretary of State. So that's Obama telling the Secretary of State that you will do these things with the Secretary of Defense. Now that is Barack Obama. Now watch this. Let's bounce back. So when you look up 112-150 by Barack Obama, what it's saying, the subsections of, that is the law of this Title 22 at the top of the page. So he's telling them to obey his law that he put into place in 2000 and, let's see, I believe it's 12. That was 2013, him telling the Secretary of Defense to work with the Secretary of State to work with the Secretary of Defense with his law from 2012. Now watch this. Let's go back to quote-unquote what the normies would think was Biden, and it ain't. It says, by the authority vested in me as President by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including Section 301 of Title III United States Code. That's always there. Now watch this. I hereby delegate to the Secretary of Defense the authority and functions vested in the President of Section 1550 on the use of military force and support of partner forces to the Congress. Barack Obama's was Barack Obama telling Secretary of State and Defense to listen to his law, because he was the president up here. This, for the normies, would be quote-unquote Joe Biden relinquishing all of his presidential authority of that war order on December the 20th, 2019 to the Secretary of Defense and to the Congress. So that's quote-unquote Biden relinquishing all of his authority, all of his duty, everything to the Secretary of Defense. Then you got to know who the Secretary of Defense is. That's why there's things called order of successions in case something happens to the president. Most of them start with a vice president. Some of them start with the Secretary of Defense. Some of them start with the Secretary of State. It just depends. But Secretary of Defense, in defense terms, is directly under the president. Is President Trump dead? No. So there's no scenario unless the president has passed away that the Secretary of Defense would have full control and authority. Title 50 is your Secretary of Defense and your Congress. Title 10 is presidential authority. Title 50 is Secretary of Defense and Congress. Title 10 is presidential authority. So the war order is in Title 50, Congress and Secretary of Defense. Chapter 33, which is your War Powers Act. All the orders that have been put into place are Title 10 orders by President Donald John Trump. It shows the continuity of government and the presidential emergency action documents. Presidential emergency action documents expand the power of the president during disasters. What did Roosevelt talk about? Disasters. All right. But PEDs are pre-planned, meaning they already knew this was coming. President Trump, the generals, the military, the world leaders, the bipartisan leaders operating on, they knew the deep state was going to retaliate. COVID was a retaliation. All right. That was genocide, bioweapon. That's why the National Bio-Defense Strategy was written in 2018, and it reads word for word what you witnessed in 2020. But it ain't President Trump's fault. They knew these people retaliate. So they already implemented everything the best they could in hopes they wouldn't, but they did. And Fauci told everybody January the 12th, 2017, 8 days before President Trump took his famous oath, Fauci's at Georgetown University telling the whole world, I guarantee, and there will most definitely be an outbreak under this next administration. He told the whole world. He told everybody there was going to be a surprise outbreak a few years from now. Alabama Hillbilly Math, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. We know the number 3 is what? A few. How did they know so accurately? So you got to understand plea bargains and plea deals and special operations and things like that. That's why this book here, this is really more part 1 is your outline, more laws. This is heavy into special operations and plea deals and how, there's a lot of variables that can happen. That's why it's so hard to do it on the podcast. There's multiple variables that you can always go with. But that's what the quote-unquote assassination would have been a year ago today. It wasn't real. It's all special operations. It's in our special operations command, unconventional warfare. It's there, all right, as a tactic. But that would have been a plea deal, more than likely a plea deal gone wrong. It could have been another variable there, but more than likely it was a plea deal by the deep state who didn't want to give up some information. So they said, okay, this is how we're going to smear you. And when it comes out down the road, you're going to remember these days. You're going to remember who was ahead of everything. You're going to remember it. And you're going to have books that you can always have that shows that. All right, so the last report by Iran was President Trump 2019, and then to December 23rd, 2024. Well, if Biden, quote unquote, for the normies, relinquishes authority to the Secretary of Defense, then that Iranian report is not by him. That's how simple this stuff is. Don't complicate it. And the continuity of government, all right, the continuity of government also proves everything, but then you go to your Executive Order 13919, President Trump gave a direct order to your Secretary of Defense. April 30th, 2020. Do your math on that. The last presidential report to Iran was December the 20th, 2019, and President Trump has an executive order to the Secretary of Defense, equal authority to federalize the select reserve. Then you fast forward, after the continuity of government was invoked, December the 7th, 2020, do your math, that wasn't a year, it wasn't even a full year yet after the war order. It was in the second 180 days under that clause in the war order. All right. Continuity of government's invoked. Executive Order 13961. 3 days later on December the 10th, Executive Order 13963 is an order of recession within the Department of Defense. Who's the Secretary of Defense? Department of Defense, Secretary of Defense, Department of Defense, Secretary. Don't that? Come on, people. Real simple math here. All right. And you have an order of succession. It's the most recent order of succession within the Department of Defense to this day, July 13th, 2025. It's the most recent. From December the 10th, 2020, every other president before President Trump had an order of succession within the Department of Defense, except for quote-unquote Joe. So when you go back and you do your timeline again, and I'm going to do these faster today versus slow. June 16th, 2025, President Trump rolls down the escalator. 4 days before that, the Law War Manual was reissued and updated. A brand new Law War Manual where they took law war manuals from other nations and its military lawyers and federal, and they took your Nuremberg trials and your Geneva Convention and your Lieber Code of 1863. They took all these things and combined them and strengthened them. And then 4 days later, President Trump rolls down the escalator. And then February 2016, fast forward, February 2016, Obama says we're going to shut down Guantanamo Bay. And President Trump, same day, says, oh no, we're not. We're going to load it up with a lot of bad dudes. Matter of fact, lots of bad dudes. He said tens of thousands at one point in one speech way back when. Tens of thousands? That's a lot of people. And Guantanamo Bay ain't the only place we got. We have Gitmo. We have the Northern Mariana Islands, which is where Guam is near. But Guam is one location, but then the Northern Mariana Islands, the Virgin Islands. Here's another little nugget for you while we're on that topic. When they showed, quote-unquote, Joe go on vacation every year in Christmas, guess where they showed him go? Every year. Guess where they showed him to go? St. Croix Island. You know what we have at St. Croix Island? One of our courts. One of those kind of courts. They put this stuff right in front of you. And when they get done with roasting all the liberals, a lot of the liberals are even going to, the higher level liberals, when they get done roasting these figures up here, a lot of these low-level liberals are going to be wanting them to be on trial as well. So for people who say, why don't they just show it? They are showing you. But this is a journey, not a destination. So, April 2016, Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide was put out by the Special Operations Command. And all of a sudden, from 1966, the word agitation changes to assassination in 2016. And that's supposed to be a quote-unquote coincidence in all the timeline that I give you. When you put all these things together in the timeline, and you say, oh, that's a coincidence? No. So then, May 2016, so February, no Gitmo by Obama. President Trump, same day, yes we are. April 2016, new pocket guide, new unconventional warfare, special operations. Talks about government in exiles. Talks about the assassination executive order. It talks about revolutions. It says when the United States government doesn't approve of anything, that the military can still operate. All right? Come on, people. Now watch this. May 2016. Out of nowhere, the United States Supreme Court is clarifying, out of nowhere, that military laws and courts are separate from federal laws and courts in the Military Justice Act of 2016. And guess what it was passed in, though? So they wrote that and clarified that in May 2016, but then they put it in the what? The 2017 National Defense Authorization Act, which would be President Trump's first defense budget. And you don't think this stuff wasn't planned? So what I've been showing people, and this is how you got to look at it, and I'm going to go through these fast today again, but 2017 to 2021, when the military came behind President Trump, that was all your visuals of a counter-psychological operation about to take place, a military operation. Military intelligence, Judge Advocate General standing right beside him. Who collects all the intel of the military? Military intel. Who judges it in a courts martial, but in a military tribunal? JAG. Judge Advocate Generals. JAG's been going back and forth heavily. Not just to Gitmo, but there's been some JAG out in Idaho. Did you know that Idaho, that the governor put back into place firing squads? President Trump's the one that talked about the quick trial. Everybody done forgot about the quick trial. All these people out there yelling they want justice. You didn't hear President Trump talk about the quick trial? President Xi told him about the quick trial. Trial in the morning, execution by the end day. And then President Trump puts out a truth on his truth that most Republicans, conservatives didn't even join truth when President Trump told you to. And the press secretary the other day told you to join truth. She said, well, the president's going to be on truth later telling you about it. How can you support a man when you don't even listen to it? So, you know. Quick trials. Quick trial. The quick trial. Trial, execution. Man, that's some tough stuff right there now. So, you know, you want justice, it's coming. But you got to listen to the man. And he puts up a post that Biden's been executed in 2020. Oh, that was a repost. He didn't see that on the bottom. The man who used social media, the first to utilize social media very heavily in the presidential campaign, all of a sudden don't know the difference in a post and a repost. And it was very visual for everybody to see down here. And he's posting the week or two before, all roads lead to Obama. Share if you would like to see public military tribunals. And you think this man messed up? It baffles me. Oh, we didn't know the difference. Then the others went and said, oh, he's a troll. He knows how to troll the trolls. No. You have all the evidence. And it's a soft disclosure of what's coming, seeing where people are. Well, most people are failing right now. That's why he went off on everybody yesterday. Because most people, where you are right now, if you're jumping ship, acting like a titty baby, and all these other things that people have been doing, you're a disappointment to your commander. That's why he put that post up. And then there were people commenting on it still. Oh, you're protecting pedophiles. No, he's not, you idiots. No, he's not. If you'd be doing what you be doing, then you wouldn't be booing. Merle Haggard, the old Merle Haggard, country music artist, in his song, if people start doing what they ought to be doing, then they won't be booing no more. Everybody I know, it baffles. So 2017, 2021, you watch the resetting of the legislative branch. All these unique laws and orders were put into place. Laws were already there, but the orders were put into place. Unique. 11 executive orders with 11 national emergencies. 11. They all outline presidential emergency action documents as well, even though they're draft classified, but you can tell they've been signed because of all the other actions around it. Your continuity government, your war order by a Democratic House introduced it. I mean, bipartisan. I mean, it can't get any more clear than that. All the executive orders that invoked Title 10, Section 12302 and 12304, which is your reserves components. Reserves don't do a dual mission like National Guard. Reserves are federal only. If people would apply that, it would really show you what the heck's going on. So, if you would look at that. So you have your biodefense strategy booklet 2018, and you have Fauci saying what he said in 2017, 8 days before President Trump. They showed you all this stuff. All right, President Trump signed the first National Security Presidential Memorandum -2 on January 28, 2017, with an order of succession. National security. All right, it's very, very key too. I'll break that down in a minute. The NSPMs, and then I'm gonna read from those as well. But unique laws and orders set up a strategic special operation. He went on all these capitulation tours. Saudi Arabia, they crowned him king, the sword dance, all that. He walked in front of the queen. The liberals, he's unetiquette, that's uncouth, he don't know etiquette. No, he was showing you the monarchy is going to be dying. All right, and then the emperor in Japan, he handed the trophy to the emperor first. To the sumo wrestler first. The emperor is supposed to do that. Japan, he was the first president or foreign leader rather into the forbidden city of China in 500 plus years. 500 plus years now. He was the first foreign leader in the forbidden city of China. North Korea, he's the first sitting president to walk in North Korea. Remember all during 2015, 2016, Hillary, all of them, what did they say? Oh, his temperament's going to start a nuclear war with Kim Jong-un in North Korea. And he ended up being the first to walk in there. See, all the stuff that they portrayed to you, and no one, where are all these people? They're treating 2021, or 2017 to 2021, and 2021 to 2025, and 2025, which will be 2029, all separately. It's not. Laws and orders show the unique strategic operation, as I show all the time. The dash matters. And guess who coined the dash? And history will show. The dash matters. The dash matters. So, India, Prime Minister of India, praising him. All right? Prime Minister of India is all over things that help with President Trump. All right? Capitulation. And then also Argentinian president standing on the stage. President Trump just left them standing there. He showed you all the ones who didn't capitulate as well. All right? He showed you. Iran didn't. All right? Well, then NATO summit. Remember, he pushed all the people out of the way. The liberals were like, look at him. This guy's acting like he's a king, and he's a supreme leader of the world, baby. If you want to call him a king, I'm all right with that. You know why? Because he's doing everything by laws and orders. Kings don't work with laws and orders. Kings are monarchy. All right. So it's kind of funny there that people, they don't even know what they're looking at. All these capitulations took place from 2017 to 2020. So all of 2017 to 2021 was unique laws and orders that invoke the continuity government, presidential emergency action documents, which expand the power of the president. So anyone who says the president can't serve past 2 terms, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know anything about Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was a 5-star general back then as well, rare 5-star. They don't know anything about laws and orders. They don't know anything about strategic laws and orders, strategic operations, special operations. They don't know anything about it. So you got to forget all that stuff. Get on board with laws and orders. Woo! All right. June 2018. The military.com and all these other military publications that most military know and the civilians wouldn't, but started reporting about $572 million being allocated for our Army, 26 of 31 brigades, for subterranean warfare. President Donald John Trump is the first president to establish a strategic plan for subterranean warfare. The first. No coincidence. All right. May 2019. Army publications started showing Israel and Gaza, so Gaza and Egypt cross-border operations. What have I shown you with aircraft for the last 3 years? And those who've known about my documents, my published documents for 4 and 5 years that knew about it when I published it. I've been showing you the aircraft out of Egypt into Israel. Egypt, Gaza, Egypt, Gaza, Egypt, the MFO.org. All right, multi-forces organization. All these, they help establish peace in Israel. Back and forth. They've been going back and forth from Europe and a lot of different places, a lot of islands over there in the Mediterranean, back and forth. All different nations, not just the U.S., but all different nations in and out of Israel. May 2019. In that same publication by the Army, $572 million. August 2019, the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, puts out a publication about Iran. Talking about Iran's power. It talks about underground bases, subterranean, underground, tunnels, underground, subterranean, tunnels. No coincidence. All right, August 2019. Also in August 2019, Washington Examiner follows up with their own write-ups about the Army. And they telling you that our next wars will be in mega cities, not inside them, but beneath them, subterranean. Also August 2019, Oklahoma, the state of Oklahoma, Jonhson & Jonhson, Big Farm, Jonhson & Jonhson is in a court case and loses the court case. It's an opioids case. Loses it. Who is the one who combated opioids in Executive Order 13784 from March 29, 2017? President Donald John Trump. And here's Jonhson & Jonhson, Big Farm, all right, who didn't listen to President Trump's orders, which would come in 2020. President Trump in a press conference said vaccines would be 14 to 16 months out. What did Jonhson & Jonhson do? What did Moderna do? What did Pfizer do? They put their vaccines out before 14 and 16 months, didn't they? And it killed people, didn't it? And Jonhson & Jonhson, though, was punished way back here in 2019 in this case in August. After all these things, guess what the number was? $572 million they were forced to pay. Wow. What a coincidence that is. $572 million that Jonhson & Jonhson had to pay over an opioids case in the state of Oklahoma. And the state of Oklahoma was the only state that every county went red this past election. Every county was red. The state of Oklahoma. And Jonhson & Johnson's losing the court case in the same month that all these other articles are mainstream, not military, are starting to tell you about the subterranean warfare and the Army spending $572 million training our soldiers for our next wars to be subterranean wars. And here's Jonhson & Johnson paying $572 million in an opioids case in which President Trump has an Executive Order 13784 March 29, 2017. I love this stuff. December the 20th, 2019, Democratic-controlled House, again, introduced war order that all the troops are operating under. It says in there, in the first 180 days, after December the 20th, 2019, and every 180 days thereafter. The president's to report to the defense committees. Well, pretty sure Iran is part of a war order. All right. Anytime you use troops anywhere. So why wasn't there a presidential report from December 20th, 2019 until December the 23rd, 2024? And then why do you have executive document under the war order of quote-unquote Biden relinquishing his authority, complete authority, to the Secretary of Defense, who is under the President? And that executive document says the President of Section 1550. Well, who was the President of 1550? Who was the President December the 20th, 2019? It's all there. Executive Order 13912 came immediately after President Trump. So March 13th, President Trump declared a verbal national emergency. March 23rd, 10 days later, mainstream articles telling you that, the president's going to install a general in case the law breaks down. Install a general? You don't install generals. They're already there by rank. All right. So that was all disclosure. That the suspension clause, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2 of the United States Constitution is called the suspension clause. It's a suspension of it's called the writ of habeas corpus. Well, guess who Article 1 is? Article 2 is the executive branch. Article 1 is the legislative branch. It was the legislative branch who suspended they call it the suspension of the Constitution. It's not the whole Constitution, but it's the writ of habeas corpus, which is rebellion or invasion of public safety. What has President Trump told you over and over and over and over? We've encountered an invasion of our nation. Our gravest threats are not abroad, they're within. He's talking about the deep state, the swamp. Draining the swamp. That's why you Republicans and conservatives and patriots who jumped ship the last 3 weeks, most of it, we've already screenshot you. You're caught. Especially if you're an influencer. You're caught. You've been had. And anybody who supports these fools after that, you're only supporting the swamp replication. They don't deserve to lead during a time when they don't even know the blueprint of what's going on. You should want to support veterans who know what's going on first, and other civilians who support veterans who know what's going on. This is a military operation. You need military personnel to break down the military operation. This is not federal anything. It's a military operation. As long as law shows we're in a continuity of government, you're in a military operation. Because the laws show that. So after that, you had 4 days later, March 27th, 2020, President Trump federalized 1 million reserve components to active duty. That's beating the deep state at their own game. I'm going to take this War Powers Act where you put limitations on the president, and I'm going to beat you with our own boys. I won't even have to get to our active duty for a long time, which we just used in California as reinforcement, the Marine Corps. All right. So March 27th, March the 30th, in a press conference, all these people out there saying President Trump supported a vaccine. No, he didn't. He said hydroxychloroquine in multiple press conferences. Multiple. But especially on March 30th. Hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine has been administered to whom? United States government, hospitals, boards, and governors. He's sitting there in first person form telling you that this has been administered to the United States government. If he's federal, then he wouldn't have to say it like that. He'd have said to us, the government. He said to the United States government. Which means we're military. People don't listen. He never said Jonhson, Moderna, Pfizer. The only time he mentioned vaccines that we were developing, he said the term vaccines, he said, but they'll be 14 and 16 months out. And he said Johnson & Johnson. But Johnson & Johnson didn't wait 14 or 16 months. They acted on their own. They defied a military law. And they'll be punished for that, no doubt. But you got to listen to it. The word vaccine is like, hey, what kind of vehicle you have? Well, I have an automobile. Okay, what kind of automobile do you have? Well, I have a Chevrolet. All right. Well, what model is your Chevrolet? It's a 1500 Silverado. That's how that works. Terminology matters. Then, after the March 30th, April the 1st, Southern Command and 22 joint partners launched an operation, a drug task force operation. They've been operating to this day. Our Coast Guard's been more active all over the world than they have on our coast. They've been active on ours too, but they're all over the world. All right? So, you got that going on. 22 joint partners. Netherlands being one of those. All right? So the Netherlands have been recently in and out of Hong Kong and all that region in China. All right? So what are they doing? If China's against us, they're not. Look at all the trade deals President Trump's made. China, Vietnam, Iraq, Syria. I mean, come on, people. Right? So when you look at that aspect, all those joint partners, you got to go look at those you got to go look who they are and see who they are, and then see where they are all over the nation and all over the board. You don't think President Trump would know that if El Salvador is over in Iran? You don't think he wouldn't know that? Come on, people. We have it all. We've caught them all. No one could have caught them but me. Listen to the man. Then that was April the 1st. No April Fools though. That was April the 1st they launched that. April the 30th, 2020, Executive Order 13919 invoked Title 10, Section 12304. It was a direct order to the Secretary of Defense under President Trump. All right, to federalize select reserves. All right, now fast forward. Continuity of Government, Executive Order 13961, December the 7th, 2020. 3 days later, the Order of Succession with the Department of Defense, the most recent. Every other president's had one except for quote-unquote Joe. That was 3 days later, December the 10th, 2020. All right. Now, I've already broken down the Title 22 and the Iranian reports and all that other stuff. All right. So, now let's fast forward into 2021 to 2025. I've already broken down most of those, but we're going to do it again just for the sake of it. January the 1st, there's only been one. So if you look on Google, this is so funny. If you type in, have any National Defense Authorization Acts been passed on in January? And it'll say no. Well, that's funny because the National Defense Authorization Act of 2021 is actually, it was passed January the 1st, 2021. So this shows you even more, but this is only for skilled people who've been following me a long time. All right, and if you're brand new, welcome. But until you put all the pieces together, this will just go roll over your head. But for the people who know, on January the 1st, 2021, the NDAA was passed. Well, President Trump vetoed it. He vetoed that. And Congress overrode President Trump. That wasn't Congress acting as Congress. That was Congress adding to the piece of the puzzle because of what was about to take place January the 6th as well and January the 20th, 2021. That was because it was on January the 1st, 2021. That was showing you. Also, same day is when the reconstitution of the executive branch was put out by FEMA and Department of Homeland Security. All these people trashing FEMA right now with Texas and what's going on in one of my great states, you look atrocious as well. All right, you look, because laws and orders show what's taking place. You look atrocious out there. You just want people to blame. Everybody wants to blame somebody for something instead of blaming themselves for not knowing what's been going on, for one. Two, why it festered to this point in history that we needed to have a military operation. That's where you're gone wrong. All right. So January the 1st, FEMA and DHS puts out reconstitution of the executive branch. A reconstitution, by definition, means to take something and put it back into its original state. Which they're telling you the executive branch had never been in its what? Original state. Because then you got to apply who? Obama, Bush Jr., Clinton, Bush Sr., Carter. I mean, all the way back to wherever you want to draw the line, which most people would draw it with JFK being assassinated. Right? That's where most people would draw the line. That all these presidents in between there, majority of them, weren't doing what they're supposed to be doing either. Because why hasn't someone put a stop to this before President Trump? Why hasn't all these people risen up? Why is this time period so unique and different? Why are so many people mad on one side and so many people happy on the other? I mean, very happy. And then why you have some in the middle who are just going, I don't know what to believe. Because you don't have a foundation. You don't know how laws work. You don't know how orders work. You don't know how they're enforced. You don't know any of that. That's what we're trying to get you to. January the 6th, first time in U.S. history. First time in U.S. history, 2 objections took place in the certification count, the state of Arizona. Well, in Title 3, Section 15, did you hear those quotes from Title 22 and Title 50? It said Title 3, Section 301. Well, in Title 3, Section 15, it shows you what to do in the case of objections in the certification of the states. That didn't happen that day. Congress broke federal law right in front of the whole world. Title 18, Section 2381, 2384, 2385, 52 U.S. Code 20511. All right, seditious acts to overthrow the government. That's what you witnessed. That conveniently after the 2 objections, a quote-unquote insurrection took place. Conveniently after 2 objections, first time in U.S. history, 2 objections take place, and then, boom, a quote-unquote insurrection. How would those people have known? Now apply this. I've never even broken it down this way. How would all those people outside who don't even know laws and orders? I mean, look at all the people who follow me who struggle with it, and that's okay if you're struggling, because you're trying. But look at all the people who have followed me who jumped ship and all these, because you think all them people, if they were real, you really think they knew what was going on? No. They didn't know that 2 objections were about to take place. They were outside of that. And conveniently 2 20,000-pound doors open from the inside? Come on, people. It's the most secure place on the planet. And all of a sudden, on the day that 2 objections in U.S. history, first time in U.S. history, 2 objections, these 2 rotunda doors just, boom, open. Come on in, rednecks, hillbillies. Come on, people. If those are real protesters or real rioters or real everything, we would still, we'd still be we would own the Capitol building. That would have been a real thing. You think really that real patriots, real people, you really think that real President Trump supporters wouldn't whoop your liberal butts? Come on, people. Come on, people. Apply some logic and common sense. So, conveniently. But it wouldn't have mattered if that would have been real. It wouldn't have mattered if anything would have been real that day. That don't stop people from law and procedure. So see, even if you couldn't believe the other portion that I talk about, knowing laws and orders, even the average normie should be able to meet me in the middle and go, okay, if you can't comprehend all this other right now, can you at least acknowledge this? That it was on TV. So if anybody was going to be mad about something, every American patriot could have said, hey, y'all didn't do Title 3, Section 15. You didn't dispose of the votes, which it says in law. No single patriot has yelled that. None. None in the normie world have yelled that. They still hung up on it. What insurrection, you liberal idiots. But all you got to do is tell a liberal, okay, well, if we committed a wrong, you committed a bigger because y'all broke the law. There's no law on insurrections unless you want to just use the Insurrection Act of 1807. But our founders actually said insurrection is a part of saving your nation. So why was the Insurrection Act passed in 1807? Got to go back in history and think about that. All right. So January the 20th, I'm not going to break it all down again, but Joe didn't receive, well, I'll do it this way. Joe didn't receive a traditional flight in D.C. on Air Force One. Not a single National Guard saluted the motorcade. We always salute a motorcade and a moving flag. He raised his right hand at 11:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is a violation of the 20th Amendment. All right. Amazing Grace was performed. It's a funeral song. All right. There was no commissioned officer present at the cannon salutes. That's a violation of Army Regulation 600-25-2-3 cannon salutes. Hey, we don't get that wrong. All right. Then 3 cannons at Arlington is not a 21-gun salute. By definition, Arlington National Cemetery.mil. 3 cannons at Arlington is a funeral. The only cannons shown all day long for quote-unquote Joe were at Arlington National Cemetery. The 4 cannons, 21 rounds, was at Joint Base Andrews with President Donald John Trump, and the media told you that's the official presidential salute battery. They didn't say that for quote-unquote Joe with the 3 cannons. They didn't say that. They didn't say that. So you go back and you watch. The 4 cannons, that is by definition a 21-gun salute. 4 cannons. No tariff was removed. Not one judge tried to block a tariff. So all these liberals out there saying, oh, these tariffs are unconstitutional, they're destroying the economy. Well, how come quote-unquote Joe never removed one single tariff from 2021 to 2025? And they displayed the military government and the puppet government in exile, the theater, displayed to the public, to the normies, that quote-unquote Joe had a Democratic House and Senate from 2021 to 2023, but didn't remove a single tariff, didn't remove a war order, didn't remove any order by President Trump with the military. Because why? He quote-unquote did what? July 19, 2021, in executive document under Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 155, was relinquished all his authority. So even if you just want to argue that Joe Biden was real, then I'll play devil's advocate for a moment and go, okay, well, do you believe in laws and orders? Yes. Okay, do you believe in the Constitution? Yes. All right, so you believe in our foundation? Yes. Well, then why did quote-unquote Joe, he's quote-unquote Joe to me, and if he wants to be Joe to you, then quote-unquote Joe, why did he relinquish all his authority in this law over here in 2021? So either way you want to slice the pie, you always go back to that executive document, because that's law. That's how the law works. All right, and all the other laws around it show military is in control. So it's there. All right. So New York, 2022, 2023. New York, National Guard were in the subways, reserve components in the subways. The only Title 10 order in law anywhere for those troops to be in the subways, the only on paper, Title 10, Section 12302, from Executive Order 13912. And Texas, 2024, because we're breaking down 2021 and 2024. President Trump was the only person with a presidential title to be seen at the border in Texas, Del Rio, Texas, and Eagle Pass, Texas. The same day he was there, they showed quote-unquote Joe at Brownsville, Texas, in an Air Force Two, and it didn't fly with a call sign again, which is all important because no president has flown with a call sign this whole time period. Guess who's flying with the presidential call signs? The Department of Defense, which also shows military operation, again, military, government, everything else that I always talk about. So President Trump's at the border of Texas with the governor and the adjutant general. Well, the adjutant general gives it all away. The adjutant general reports to the governor unless what? Unless the National Guard are federalized by whom? The president. The president is only with federalization power. Title 10, that's presidential authority. 14 states deployed to Texas in February 2024. 14. That's federal. The only person with a presidential title that were around the troops was President Donald John Trump. Now, this is for all the veterans out there. I've seen some atrocious veterans yelling at the National Guard and obey the Constitution. they don't know any law of which they served under, but especially the Constitution. If a veteran right now is yelling against President Trump or yelling against the National Guard, they have no clue what's going on. By the very laws that they swore in under. Every active duty and reserve component swore in under Title 10. The National Guard swears under Title 32, but they can be called up by the President, which is Title 10, Section 12406, which is what you saw in California, which we're getting to in a minute. But every active duty reserve component sworn under Title 10, Section 502. Now, they both read the same. I, Derek Jonhson, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will obey the orders of the President and the officers appointed over me according to what? Regulations, so meaning your branch regulation, whatever branch you're in, Army for me, Marine for others, Air Force for regulations of what? The Uniform Code of Military Justice. Guess what the Uniform Code of Military Justice is? Title 10, Chapter 47. And your oath is Title 10, Section 502. So you can't have one Title 10 without the other. So that's why a lot of these veterans look atrocious, man. And it's not me trashing you. It's me trying to say, hey, step up to the plate right now. What if some liberal out there went down to the Army surplus and bought a uniform and put all the pins on it and went out in these mass deployments of the National Guard and try to blend in? You wouldn't like that, would you, vets? You don't like it when stolen valor. I don't like it. That's what stolen valor is when you act like someone you're not. The other it's stolen valor in that. The Stolen Valor Act is when you claim a medal you don't have. The Stolen Valor Act of 2013 is when you claim a medal you don't have. So these veterans are looking, not all, but a few, are looking atrocious as well. Title 10, Section 502. So, a lot of people just don't have a foundation to stand on. So that was 2021 to 2025. You watched the resetting of the executive branch. January 1st kicked it off with the reconstitution of the executive branch, FEMA publication, and Department of Homeland Security, which was under Federal Continuity Directive 1 and Federal Continuity Directive 2. January 17, 2017, June 13, 2017. No coincidence. And they have like 10 or 11 publications under those, and that's one of them. Also in December 2023, Continuity Planning Framework for the Federal Executive Branch. There's your real tie-in that shows you 2021 to 2025 was a resetting of the executive branch. December 2023 is basically a summary, and it's also kicking in 2024, but it shows you that hey, this is what's going on. All throughout that publication of it's called the Continuity Planning Framework, if you want to Google it, all right? It's called the Continuity Planning Framework of the Federal Executive Branch. All throughout it, guess what it references? Executive Order 13961, which is your Continuity Government Executive Order by President Donald John Trump from December 7th, 2020. That's your Continuity Go. So everything shows you Continuity Go. So 2021 to 2025 was a resetting of the executive branch. Now to present day, 2025 to present day, judge this, judge that, judge this, judge that, judge block this, judge block that, judge said this, judge judge that, judge this, judge, appeals court, circuit court, district court, Supreme Court this, district court that, appeals court this, district court that. Everything's about judges right now. You're watching the resetting of the judicial branch. That's why they showed President Trump go through all these quote-unquote trials and all these other things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You should see all the Supreme Court docket cases he's got petitions for. Boy, you think that a couple of these, no. The birthright citizenship, that's one tiny little sliver. There are tons of petitions everywhere. We about to see a fundamental reset of the judicial branch like you ain't ever seen in your life when you look at all the petitions that President Trump has. Multiple petitions. Multiple. Judge this, judge that, judge. And it's nothing to fear. I mean, it's all a resetting of the judicial branch. So 2017 to 2021, resetting the legislative. 2021 to 2025, resetting of the executive. And then you're watching the resetting of judicial branch. That's why the documents case, he said, I won my documents case, quote unquote. He said, Joe didn't, right? Well, documents, Presidential Records Act of 1978, and Obama followed up with an executive order for the presidential records. All right, presidential records can be held by vice presidents and presidents. So President Trump's telling you over and over, I won my documents case, but quote unquote Joe, he don't call it that, but he calls him Joe. Joe didn't. Well, you either got to believe Joe wasn't vice president either, or he was, which he was, unfortunately, but he was. Well, then that leaves one other thing. That means, quote unquote, Joe was not president, because presidents can hold documents. They can hold multiple classified documents. President Trump tells everybody without telling you, because we're still under a continuity government. There was a partial revocation on January the 19th, 2025. Partial revocation of Executive Order 13961. Certain sections are still active. When you have a continuity government in law, then you have a presidential emergency action document showing you that, hey, this is a military operation still. So relax a little bit. It's partially revoked, meaning we're headed towards what? Full-fledged Constitution again. Full-fledged, not military operation. But they made it go on quote-unquote Joe's record, which is awesome. So once you learn what a strategic operation is and the puppet government and the government in exile by, once again, special operations, unconventional warfare, irregular, once you learn that, then you want that to look like quote-unquote Joe. I know quote-unquote Joe wasn't real, but you want it to look that way for certain reasons, because then, guess who can't say anything? Liberals, Democrats, right? The others right now, like Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, Jasmine Crockett, all them, that's a lot of theater, right? Because most of them are going to be taken out as well. All these deep state bureaucrats are gone, whether it be physical and or just operational. New York, March 11th, 2025. This March 11th. New York state senators wrote a letter to President Trump asking for what? Federalization of whom? The National Guard to active duty. There's no presidential order there, but there were 2,800 National Guard active in 2022 and 2023 with the subways. Now the Adjutant General reported just recently 8,200 National Guard. So it went from 2,800 to 82. Where's the Title 10 order? There's not a Title 10 order in place. There's no Title 10 order on President Trump's federal register as we speak. Where? Where is it? He didn't have to, because Executive Order 13912, which invoked Title 10, Section 12302, from March 27, 2020, was not revoked by quote-unquote Joe. Which is why, again, not only do liberals look crazy and atrocious, but Republicans and conservatives and some quote-unquote patriots did what? Jump ship. When there's laws that show it's still a military operation, still a continuity government. Executive Order 28 by the New York Governor Hochul doesn't say Title 32 either, for all the people out there that would say, well, what about Title 32? Her Executive Order number 28 shows federal support. Federalist Title 10. When it's involved with reserve components or National Guard, federal is Title 10, presidential authority only. Title 32 is governor. California, Joint Publication 3-57, Civil-Military Operations. Anybody who says that the military cannot operate in the streets of our streets or our wherever it is on our turf with the civilians or law enforcement, wrong. And before I get there, since it's law enforcement as well, talking about the judges, judge, district, supreme, this, that. President Trump signed Executive Order 13977 on January the 18th, 2021, which would have been 2 days before people thought he had to walk away, he signed an executive order for the protection of law enforcement, judges, and prosecutors. That order has not been revoked. So now fast forward to California, and you get all these liberals out there and these idiot veterans who are just yelling at the National Guard to obey lawful orders, don't you disobey any unlawful order. You got to know what a lawful order is first. Then you got to know what's taking place. These people are taking up for unlawful people, not citizens. The military ain't removing lawful citizens. They're not removing people who are doing things the right way. They're not removing people with green cards. They're not removing people. These idiot liberals are taking up and standing in the way. So this sends a message to the liberals out there. If you enter any territory, especially the one on the border down there by the military, but right now the whole nation is under military law. So it really don't have anything to do with just the Texas border. When you interfere with military law, you will be treated accordingly. This is why it pays to know the law. And once you realize that the military is in complete constitutional operation, doing exactly what the law says, but these people don't appreciate military. They don't appreciate a nation fought by a war, established by a war. The whole 4th of July is to celebrate a nation that was founded in the middle of a war. They don't appreciate it. But guess what? There's nothing they can do to stop it. And now President Trump's done told them, if you throw bricks or spit on anything, you're gone. You're out of here. You probably should know. You probably should know what's going on. So the people out there saying unconstitutional. They don't even know Constitution for one. They also don't know the Constitution is just a broad governance. The Constitution should not be used. You need to know the laws and the orders. The Constitution is just what says Congress is to do this. Well, this is what this is what Congress did here. You idiots, you morons out there saying this is what Congress, not President Trump's Congress, this is what Congress did with all these different kind of war orders back here. The general order. Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550 is just an amendment. It's not the Chapter 33. It's not the War Powers Act of 1973. 1550 is an amendment to the whole thing. You should be blaming the people from 1973 if you don't like anything. You should be blaming the people of that era if you don't like what's going on. That's how dumb these liberals look. So, Joint Publication 3-57, page 46, has a little excerpt in there, and it says, what? It says something about the Posse Comitatus Act. Is normally not prohibited, and generally you don't want what? Title 10, active duty. You don't want Title 10 forces unless what? There's your key line coming here. Unless what? Unless the Constitution or Congress deems so. Well, every single National Guard and Reserve component to this day and active duty are all operating under Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. December the 20th, 2019. The same day the Space Force was established. A few other things took place that day as well, legislatively. But then it's the last presidential report about Iran from December the 20th, 2019 to December the 23rd, 2024. You find that a coincidence that Obama had 20, President Trump had 4, and quote-unquote Joe would have only had quote-unquote 1 at the very end, 28 days before President Trump is visually seen again in what people call the second, which is his third term. That's what the dash is. But then you go back to executive document under Section 1550 from December the 20th, 2019, and it's him relinquishing his authority to the Secretary of Defense who is directly under the president. Section 1550, the president of 1550, well, that's President Donald John Trump. Real simple. Same Title 10. Same Title 10. Marine Corps have to be under Title 10. And then also the National Guard. President Trump did a presidential call-up. Executive, so it's under executive order, but it's in Title 10, 12406. And then 2 days later, a report to Congress. That's already in the Federal Register. Already there. President Trump's 48 hours, he has to tell Congress, here you go, here's what I did. Boom. October, November speeches. This is kind of icing on the cake, again, to prove it. President Trump, he mentioned it to 2021, 2022, 2023, which there's no such thing as a midterm rally. Again, keep that in mind. But October, November, if you just want to go back to note, Madison Square Garden and all those speeches. All right. Occupy. White flag of surrender. Capitulation. Puppet government. So he said, we're an occupied country, we'll soon no longer be occupied. Boom. He said, remember Angela Merkel? I gave her the white flag of surrender. White flag of surrender. It's called the white flag of truce by actual definition. Then February 18, 2025, a reporter asked President Trump in one sentence, in one question, she asked about a capitulation and a puppet government in Russia. Well, guess what talks about Russia? The National Defense Authorization Acts. So this is already there. All right, the soccer ball was a capitulation, July 16, 2018, the soccer ball by Putin to President Trump, because Putin was not the president of Russia from 2008 to 2012, when all the Epstein stuff was going on and all the Uranium One was going on. Ooh, that's why Republicans, conservatives look atrocious with the Epstein stuff, which we're going to get to one more time in this video. I'm the only person out of all the flapping gums out there and all the moving lips and all the people who think they're influencers and they're not, they're just drama and propaganda and all this other stuff. They don't know what's going on by laws and orders. They're also, 99% of them are not veterans. They're just trying to sell you something. They have no foundation. I'm the only one who talks about puppet governments. My grandfather served during the time period that the Second Philippine Republic was put into place. The most popular of puppet governments in the World War II era. All of these terms are not government terms whatsoever. They're law war manual terms. Remember that little booklet that was put out 4 days before President Trump rolled down the escalator? Brand new one. And puppet government and occupied country, which is actually called occupied territory by definition in the law war manual, they're in the same chapter. White flag of surrender and capitulation are in the same chapter. Two separate chapters, but occupied country, territory, and puppet government are in the same chapter. Guess what chapter that is? Military occupation. So when you have law that shows we're in a continuity government, then you have law that shows military occupation, military government, government in exile, unconventional warfare. It's not conventional for a reason. It's a strategic operation for a reason. It's a resetting of everything. So when it's all said and done, for the people who whine and complain and groan and gripe and fuss and, oh, I can't make it, oh, when's this going to be over, and all that, all the Debbie Downers and all the negative Nancys and the Chicken Littles, the world's falling on them and everything, all those people, ye of little faith, all faith, all God but no faith. All those people are going to look bad. Because when it's fully cleaned out, see all the people yelling about Epstein, you just want one person to go down. You don't want to see the big puzzle. It's leverage for one, but it's a bigger puzzle. Iran wasn't a war. All these people that are even claimed to be under President Trump right now, like nominated on some team, which he didn't nominate them. It was like, hey, here's a recommendation of some good people, and These people putting up posts, not our war. It's not a war. If you read the National Defense Authorization Acts, if you read what mattered by the military, you'd see it's a strategic operation. It wasn't a war. There's a difference in an operation and a war. I would fire those people, but that was just me. But again, humanity, they're going to show that, well, you just didn't know that you didn't know, and next time you'll keep your mouth shut and probably learn what you need to know. So all these people are going to look bad, because if it ended up being a 12-year operation, let's just say it went to 2029. Let's just say it did. 12 years out of your life, and then when at the end of it, you're going to see all these things cleared out, all the festering rot of DC that President Trump called it, the festering rot. Think about that slogan. He used the term festering after I've said it over and over. He does that. He validates people. All the time. Pictures and words. I'm the one who did the penguin walk with quote-unquote Biden all throughout 2022 on videos. Right before I met him. Then what did he do? He started mocking. Come on, people. President Trump is a delegator, but he's also he's a validator as well. He knows you can't do this all on his own. There's multiple people in this operation. And they told you way back in 2017, the mainstream media told you there's 60,000 secret military. I tell people, be careful who you judge out there. You just don't know. All right. So all these people, if it went to 2029, chill out. 12 years out of if you live to be 90, it's going to be great. It's going to be perfect. Relax. I mean, come on. I told my mother from the get-go. I told her in 2017, when I get scared, you can get scared. Have anybody seen me scared? Hey, no. This is awesome. World history, baby. Biblical, monumental, historical, world history. We don't want the military in the streets always, no. But that's why the line says generally we don't, and unless what? Constitution. So you've had to see it that way. So, real fast, let's get back on Epstein really quick. This is the bigger picture. But when people will focus on laws and orders, like I mentioned James Stewart the other day. So his real name was James Stewart, but he went by Jimmy Stewart, an actor. All right, but a lot of people didn't know he was a brigadier general. Brigadier general now. He flew B-52 bombers. And he kept his military first, acting second. And he's in the famous movie. I highly recommend everybody watch it. It'll teach you a thing or two about the swamp. It was 1939. I think sometimes before I said 1938, but it was actually 1939, the movie. And so James Stewart, in one of his other movies, on the blackboard behind him in cursive, that's the most problem. Most people can't read cursive anymore. But the blackboard says, education is the basis of laws and orders. Education is the basis of laws and orders. And Jimmy Stewart was an American patriot like no other. Loved America. B-52 bomber. He was in the Army Air Reserve, but Air Corps first, and then he went to Air Force when the Air Force was established in 1947. So, most people with this Epstein, you're thinking small. Mainly because people don't know the laws and orders, or you haven't applied them. You haven't applied it. Knowledge is not power, ladies and gentlemen. It's the application of knowledge that's power. Most of you thinking small. You got to think the whole swamp. Now, you've seen some podcasters out there, they act like this stuff's brand new. It's not brand new. We've been talking about this a while. But all of a sudden, you got guys out there that all muscled up, and they're like, this is leverage. I saw some big dude on a video. He's like talking about, he's trying to relate it to like sales or something like that. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, and women, y'all fall for the muscle, guys. Hold on, let me blow my muscles up here. Let me get my muscles up. Muscles don't make anything. You know what the military mainly looks like? Guys like me. Lanky, tall and lanky. Alright? So, leverage. Of course it's leverage. That's the easiest, simplest thing that anybody can say. If you're stumbling on podcasts or saying, think about it, it's leverage. That's surface level. Surface level. You don't even need surface level. If you know me, or if you refer me, all you got to do is refer people to me. They don't need surface level. They don't need it. Laws and orders are there. It's all there. Between the NDAAs and between the NSPMs, between all these things. So why is Obama resurfacing all of a sudden? See, a lot of people say, well, he's been posting on it. No, you don't see him. Did you see him post that? No. Then people say, well, he's been in some interview. No, it's all staged. That's staged. But, all right, let's play devil's advocate for a moment. Why is he resurfacing? Why is he talking trash about President Trump all of a sudden, specifically? About the big, beautiful bill, and, our nation's crumbling, and we got to save it, and, we're losing it. Why all of a sudden? So, why hasn't, quote-unquote, Obama been out in the streets? Hillary, Bill, George. Where'd Al Gore go? Where's John Kerry? Where'd they go? Where'd Mitt Romney go? Where'd all these people go? Where'd Jeb Bush go? Where did all of these people go? Where did the swamp go? Where are they? If President Trump could do rallies in 2021, 2022, 2023, which was not the election year, even though there's no rule on that or law on that, but no other president's ever done that, why isn't Obama, Bill, Hillary, George, Jeb, John Kerry, Mitt Romney, John Kasich, where are all these people? Why aren't they out with their delinquents on the street rallying their quote-unquote delinquents? Why aren't they out there? Why aren't they pumping up their troops, what they call their troops? Why aren't they doing that? Where are they? Where physically are they? If they're free to roam, where are they? How come Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Hakeem Jeffries aren't posting on their social media to release the Epstein files? Nancy Pelosi, Drunk Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Hakeem Jeffries. Why didn't quote-unquote Biden release the files? If President Trump's name is on there, this is just logic. Anybody should be able to see logic. If you have a brain and IQ in that matter of your brain, you should be able to acknowledge this. Epstein started way back. He took a state charge in 2008. If you claim to be a Republican, if you claim to be a conservative, if you claim to be a patriot, if you claim to be a President Trump supporter, and you're trying to blame this on President Trump, you need deported. He took a state charge. He basically a plea deal in 2008. Where were you in 2008? He took a state deal in 2008. 2010 is when the Uranium One deal took place that President Trump says is the most scandalous scandal in United States history, Uranium One. 2010. Who was the president? Obama. Who was his vice president? Biden. Who was his Secretary of State? Hillary. Who also benefited from it with $500,000 speeches? Bill. Guess who was not president of Russia from 2008 to 2012? Putin. He was prime minister. But he wasn't the head, meaning like he wasn't the one for the chopping block. He's the one he can do what? Take a plea deal. July 16th, 2018, soccer ball would have been a capitulation. He took a plea deal. So him being smeared and all the other stuff going on with Russia and Ukraine, that's part of a plea deal. That's part of that because people are all Russia, and hate Putin. That's part of the plea deal. That's what you call a fall guy. But he took a plea deal. 2010, the bigger picture are the hit lists by whom? Obama and Clinton. How many suicides? How many? It's over 120 quote-unquote suicides linked back to whom? Hillary and Bill. And you people of little faith are whining and complaining and griping and fussing and questioning the man of the whole operation, outsider, who put his name, brand, image, and family up on it, for the greatest, most biblical, monumental, historical operation known to man, when laws and orders outline a military occupation, a military government, government exile, unconventional warfare, everything's under control. It's because you of little faith don't know what's going on by the man that you claim to support and the laws and orders of the military that you also claim to support. You don't know anything about it. Because if you did, you'd be grinning from ear to ear and flexing and pumped up because the swamp has been drained. They're getting everything else set up where we can maintain and sustain it. So not only did they drain it, not only did we have to go in operations to drain it, the child trafficking, the sex trafficking, the human trafficking, in the tunnels, all over the world. Our troops have been all over the world, not just ours, but all of our joint partners that you failed to mention or failed to see in your little whining and your complaining. You failed to see all this, all the National Guard, all the reserve components, all the world's militaries are hitting the subterraneans. All right, they're hitting the drug traffickers out in the seas and everything like no other's been ever done before. Where have you been? So you claim to support the military, but you don't want to listen to a guy tell you military laws and orders. And apply them, make them applicable. You can't just read them, you got to make them applicable. So you have to put those in operations, which requires what? Manpower. So they had to do this, clean that out, and simultaneously they're cleaning that out. They got to do what? Find people who ain't whining, complaining, griping, and have their heads so far up their rear ends they can give themselves a tonsillectomy or look out their little mouth like a hoot owl. I mean, really, think about it. That's how atrocious some of the Republicans, conservatives, and these quote-unquote patriots look. You're not a patriot, by the way. Not a patriot. That word just went right out wherever it was applied to your head, your body, your shirt, whatever. So they had to not only drain the swamp, but then you got to find all the people who want to do what? Operate the new system. And know what's going on, want to be there for the right reasons, and then do what? Accountability, responsibility, transparency, and maintain and sustain. So you have multiple layered operations going on. Not only are you draining it in those operations, but then you got to do what? Have plans in place, systematic checkpoints, quality assurances, everything else, logistics, etc., 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 of maintainability and sustainability. Then in 2011, who was still the Secretary of State? Hillary. 2011. Now this is where everything comes to it. This is the full answer for Epstein. If people would shut up long enough and listen. A month, well 4 months, excuse me, not a month, but 4 months before the quote-unquote, this month as I was thinking of, today, a year ago, people, all these patriots, our president was shot, same people who jumped ship, a lot of them, same people. Now they're jumping ship by the man that they were just all in disarray, thinking he was shot last year, today, July 13th. and you don't know special operations. Boy, me and all the special operators, oh my Lord, have mercy. You would have thought that we kicked their puppy, telling them, hey, well, sorry about this special operations. You asked my opinion. Well, I'm not showing you opinion. I'm showing you unconventional warfare right here. 1966, the word changed from agitation to 2016, Special Operations Command, unconventional warfare to assassination. And it's got a line behind it. And it tells you exactly. It says, forming favorable public opinion, advocating national cause, and creation of distrust of established institutions. Well, did it do all that? Yes, it did. It formed a favorable public opinion because people got mad, pissed, angry, upset, frustrated, crying, scared, fearful, but supportive of President Trump. Even Democrats were like, oh, okay, that's too far. Formed a favorable public opinion. Checkmate. Advocated national cause. Well, did it leave the walls of Pennsylvania? Did it escape Butler? Did it escape Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, the border wall of Pennsylvania? Yes, it did. Checkmate. Creation of distrust of established institutions. What is on the news as we speak today? It's saying that the Secret Service knew something they knew in advance. Isn't the Secret Service an established institution? Checkmate. And then 11 days later, the anniversary will be on July 24th this year, they had the Secret Service director under congressional oath, and they asked her a question that validated all of my books and everything about me, if it was about me, which it ain't. But if it was, she's on there saying what? They asked her, did President Trump receive the same security detail that he would have received as a sitting president? And she said, continuity of government. And if you think that they put the real president out, so this is where it debunks everybody as well. My one Instagram photo debunks everything. All these people came to my Facebook and my Instagram the day I posted the first time I ever met President Trump. My moment in history as well, being validated, signing my publicity, all the things that happened to me with President Trump. My first time ever meeting the Commander-in-Chief, my Commander-in-Chief, your President, all right, the first time meeting him, and I post this photo to share with my friends and family and followers, faithful people, patriots, the real patriots, and you have people coming on there trashing it. That's not real Donald Trump. How dare you, Derek Jonhson? He paid him to get a photo with him. Look at all this. All of those haters and ignorant people proved that you see two different President Trumps. Now, there's an idiot out there right now. People have been writing in asking me about this certain particular moron who's going on actual podcasts out there, conservative podcasts or patriot podcasts, saying that the President Trump you're seeing is the bad President Trump and this is the good one. All they're doing is a disservice to all of us veterans that know what's going on. They are actually taking a giant crap on every memorial grave in this nation. Whether that soldier knew what they served for or not, doesn't matter. We have evidence of memorial graves all across this nation in national cemeteries all over the U.S. Anybody who's saying that is a disgrace and doing a disservice to every single veteran who ever served, all those still serving. All right, all they want is clickbait, and they want you to comment on it. They're all algorithm based, and they're all this based. They have no oath to keep, and they also don't have memorial bracelets that they wear for all of their friends and family who have taken the fall in the uniform. It's atrocious. All right. Now, there are doubles, and my picture proves. But think about it. This is where you can separate logic from people who have logic and who just can't get it. Why would they put the body double at the private golf courses and private establishments? What purpose will that serve? That makes no sense whatsoever. But put the real president out at the events to get shot at. That right there will make you look. That's where I have to, like, I use the illustration, like if this was a USB and have to upload more IQ. So the body double gets to go chill at the golf courses where all his members already knew him. They're members because they have $1 million or more a year. So the body double gets to go chill and play golf all day. But the real president gets to go out there to the real events and get shot at. That's what you're doing to special operations, special forces, Navy SEALs, I mean, all veterans. Special operations, everything, unconventional warfare, everything. That's what you're doing. When you think like that and say that, and especially when you voice that, and you put it in writing and comment boxes, that's what you're doing. So his members, who already were members even before, a lot of them before presidency, his members know him. So the members, the body double chills with the members, and the body double gets to play golf all day and don't get that. I mean, how did we get so dumb in America? So if you would remove all these things where you think it's far-fetched, or you think it's a fairy tale, or you think it's conspiracy and all that, it's laws and orders. Again, military laws and orders are not conspiracy theories. Now, the one that solves everything is 4 months before this quote-unquote assassination. It's not an assassination. It was a body double, all right, and it's an operation. And then 4 months before, there's a Supreme Court docket, 23-939. Now, when you pull that up, when you go to Google and type in Supreme Court docket, search, enter, type in Donald J. Trump, you can do it that way. That's going to pull up all of the cases. It's like 24 pages or tabs of it. It's only like 10 a page, I think. But so it's like whatever that would be. But last I look. But really, type in the search box 23-939. The dash matters. 23-939. Enter. It's going to pull up. And then you click on that, the one, you'll see the little blue underline hyperlink. Click on that. It's going to pull up this massive page about that long. Pretty long. Can't even fit in the screen. All right. Scroll down to March 19th, 2024. There's a few entries for March 19th, but you got to find the one that says 3 military officials. You'll see it. It'll say the number 3. Click on that. Then that pulls up the case, that case, for it. And in there, that's the one that's going to roast all of the Epstein files, Bill, Hillary, George, Kerry, Biden, Hunter, Pelosi, all these people. This is the one that's going to get them. Because you have to go with tangible evidence that you can prove. Things that you can, and even the Law of War Manual talks about this. If you go to the Law of War Manual, the humanities section, and read about humanity, you can't go back 40 and 50 years and pull something up 40 and 50 years ago that doesn't have evidence. That'd be like, that's what's happened to politicians in the past, where someone will come out and say, oh, he tried to kiss me in a hallway 50 years ago. You didn't say anything then. Why are you saying it now that they're in a position? So see, they're trying to reset all of that as well, which means societal resets. Meaning society, change your way of thinking. If someone does something to you, you need to be strong enough to say it then. Go to the proper authority then and be strong enough to say it then. Don't be all cowboy, cowgirl 40 and 50 years later. That ain't how that works. So if you'll read Law of War Manual, humanitarian part of it, humanity, You'll see that. But then also, this is relevant enough. That's why President Trump says we have it all, we've caught them all. Because the operation started by law November the 8th, 2016. And then your visual of January 20th, 2017 would be your go time. Meaning, all right, we're gone. This is it. Go time, baby. So, hey, it's all in this docket case. Now, let's break it down. All right, so 23-939. It asks the question, can a president order SEAL Team 6 to commit murder on a political rival? To assassinate. Wow. Opens a massive can of worms, because the last time a president in SEAL Team 6 was involved with any assassination or killing was Obama and Osama bin Laden. May the 2nd, 2011. Who was the vice president? Biden. And also, in the 2020 campaign, the debate with President Trump and quote-unquote Joe, President Trump said, and it was you, Joe, it was you who recommended the Logan Act on General Michael Flynn. Well, the Logan Act is Title 18. That's federal crime as well. Federal crimes and criminal procedures. That's federal law. Federal crimes. All right. Title 18, Section 953. But there was Vice President Biden recommending the Logan Act on their Defense Intelligence Agency director as a vice president, and Obama listened to him, but the world thought, quote-unquote, Joe was president from 2021 to 2025, and President Donald John Trump, they thought he was a former president, and he met with 12 foreign leaders 13 different times from April 2024 to December 2024. And quote-unquote Joe and the Democrats, and all, they didn't, and even the Republicans that most average people thought turned on President Trump, Paul and Massey and McConnell and all that, they didn't try to invoke the 14th, 18th, and 25th Amendments on President Trump for the same Logan Act. You know what the Logan Act reads? Private correspondence with foreign leaders. I'm pretty sure 12 foreign leaders at Mar-a-Lago and Trump Tower would be private correspondence if President Trump was a former. So there's quote-unquote Joe as a president, and he can't invoke the same Title 18, Section 953, the Logan Act, as a quote-unquote president versus a former president who they say is a threat to this and destroying this and that. But he could recommend it as a vice president? Come on, people. So then you go back to Obama, 2011, May. Who else died in 2011? Gaddafi, October 2011. So 5 months after Osama bin Laden was taken out, Gaddafi was assassinated. On Osama's record, it shows killed. On Gaddafi, it says assassinated. But it tells you that certain guerrilla civil war, blah, 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 people took him out. Remember the little plot called Benghazi? You remember Benghazi? And who was under congressional oath answering for Benghazi? Hillary Clinton. Who was the Secretary of State for Obama and Biden from 2009 to 2013? Hillary. And Gaddafi was the leader of Libya from 1969 to 2011, who supported gold, who said that the same 5 world powers cannot rule the rest of the world in that UN speech. So in 2011, right before he died, he's at the UN Assembly, and he's speaking, and he says, are we not going to investigate what happened with Saddam Hussein? Are we not going to investigate that? Man. He said, the United States will do the same thing to us that they did to him. They will hang us. And then he said the same 5 world powers can't rule the world. Then he also said what? It could be one of you. It could happen to any one of us. And who laughed at him? Al-Assad from Syria at that time period laughed at him. Who fled Syria December the 8th, 2024? Who fled Syria? Assad. Who did we just... President Trump's the first president to end a national emergency from the swamp with the nation of Syria. President Trump just ended this. He just ended the national emergency with Syria and opened up the world market, U.S. market and Syria market, signed a trade deal with Syria. President Trump hammered and exposed Obama on Syria. Who was in the military during Syria? There's a reason, and it's getting closer and closer. The days are closer and closer. How all the pieces of the puzzle fit together. Why I know what I know and how I got put where I got put. And Gaddafi, it was 2011. Hillary, the year after uranium won, that President Trump put on a tweet, the biggest scandal in United States history is uranium one. $145 million. In 2011, Obama takes out Osama bin Laden. And 5 months later, Gaddafi is quote-unquote assassinated. And now there's a Supreme Court docket case. Donald J. Trump versus United States government. Can a president order SEAL Team 6 to commit murder, assassinate a political rival? Guess what it says in there? It says three amici curiae, which means friends of the court. General Keith Kellogg's one of them, who President Trump just named ambassador to Ukraine. All right, who wrote the 2017 National Security Strategy, the most recent on the Department of Defense. There's another nugget there. The most recent National Security Strategy on Department of Defense is from 2017. The author is Keith Kellogg, who is an amici curiae in this case, who President Trump named ambassador to Ukraine. All right. You can't get any more clear than this. He's also going to be the author of the new strategy. A resounding no from all these senior officials from the executive branch and also the military. Resounding no from combat generals. Resounding no. Guess whose names are not in the War Powers Act, ladies and gentlemen? All of you ye of little faith, all of you crying and jump ship on President Trump on Epstein, because you can't and won't hang on. You don't even have to hang on. You can see the bigger picture if you'd shut up long enough and listen to people who know what's going on by laws and orders that we served under, and take our oath seriously to the direct terminology of it. Guess whose names are not in the War Powers Act? George Bush Sr., Clinton, and Obama. If laws are unconstitutional, then Title 50, Chapter 33 was established in 1973. So why didn't George Sr. and Clinton and Obama abide by what? The law. And all they got to do is just go with the most recent to open the massive can of worms. As President Trump said, all roads lead to whom? Obama. Reshare if you want to see what? Military tribunals, public. Listen to the man you claim to support. Listen to him. And then listen to people like me. I'm not the only veteran doing it, but there's a bunch of us out there veterans. Listen to the people who know all the laws and the orders. You don't need pieces, and you don't need regurgitators. There's nothing new at this point. There's nothing new. Everything you need to know, everybody. Everything you need to know. So, I mean, it's all right here. Part 1, Part 2. Yeah. It's all there. Chronological blueprint. These are like cliff notes. I've got a fella that's always on my Instagram, and he pins it so perfectly. He said it's not a novel, and it's not a novel. It's straight up cliff notes. It's the workbook. I've done all the homework for you. I put it all in there. Now there will be a part 3 because President Trump's third term, historic, 45, 46, 47, historic. There will be a part 3, but it's going to be more of just your bigger pieces of what, like California and all the Iranian stuff and all that. But that way it's history, and we need to have that history documented in case, God forbid, 7 generations out, they encounter a bunch of idiots who forget their responsibilities and duties like Americans have done the past 150 years under this Organic Act of 1878. God forbid this happens again, but that's what we're supposed to do. One, God commanded that. He did that in Native Americans. I love how these liberals love to quote Native Americans. Well, I have Native American in me. I can prove that by my DNA and everything. But Native Americans, we think 7 generations out. We live today preparing as if we want the 7th generation to live exactly how we are. If liberals would think like that and quit just blabbing them, and Republicans, conservatives, and a lot of patriots, and apply these things, apply it. Knowledge is not power. Again, it's application of knowledge that's power. And everything's in the blueprint. It is all there. There's nothing new at this point. And a lot of people are still just searching everywhere, and you'll stumble on someone with muscles, and they look good, and they sound good, and they do this, and they do that, and they're selling something. Now, it's okay to sell things. We're in a capitalist market. But when they're not leading you to what? Solutions. It's the same thing with doctors. They try to treat the symptom versus cure the problem. You don't have to listen to any symptoms right now. You don't need perspectives. You don't need opinions when there's an absolute blueprint in place by President Donald John Trump. That's a commander, supreme commander, wartime president. You don't need anything else. It's just going to get your panties in a wad, get you all mad, flustered, angry, bitter, whatever. You won't even be able to enjoy your coffee. The things that will make you feel good won't even make you feel good because you can't enjoy it because you're so mad and frustrated. And you what? Insanity. Insanity is doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. You don't need new people right now. You need the people who know what's going on. That's why I don't apologize when there's influencers out there misleading people. There should be no comment box right now. Yeah, there's going to be idiots in there, but the ones who want to know, they can know what's going on by laws and orders of the military first and how they pair with federal. You don't need any kind of anything out there. There's so much stuff between your NDAAs, your national security presidential memorandums. There's one I didn't even go over in this podcast. The National Security Presidential Memorandum President Trump put out January 28, 2017. He just put a new one out, February the 4th, 2025. Both of those have order of successions in them. Quote unquote Joe, February 2021. There's an NSM, but guess what's not in there? Order of succession. if you go look up all they all have different names, first off, except for Kennedy and Jonhson, and also Nixon, and I think it was Nixon, and Ford. Nixon and Ford. They all have the same, so Kennedy and Jonhson had the same titles, NSAMs. Nixon and Ford had NSDMs. Carter had PDs. Reagan had NSDDs. Bush had NSDS. Clinton had PDDs. Not like old P. Diddy, but that sounded funny. All right, Clinton. So George W. had NSPDs. Obama had PPDs. President Trump had NSPMs and quote-unquote Biden NSMs. All right? But none of Biden's are legit because you go back to your executive document in Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, where he relinquished his authority. So all that's theater. But if you look up Obama, NSPM2. So if you look up President Trump's, and I'm talking about NSPM2, Order of Succession, 2017. NSPM2, 2025, Order of Succession. Quote-unquote Joe's, no Order of Succession. If you look up Obama, Clinton, Bush, Reagan, all of them, guess what they have? Order of Successions. Quote-unquote Biden is the only quote-unquote president without an order of succession. Why? It's all there. So between the funeral service on January the 20th, which was not an inauguration, by Army regulations. So if you support the military, you can't support the military in any branch without branch regulations. It's impossible. That is impossible. The military exists on regulations. And then they work with executive orders, because the president, executive, and then also your treaties, national emergencies, and proclamations. There's 4 ways military pairs with federal. And there's also your 4 ways military pairs with federal, which is also the 4 ways of presidential emergency action documents. Executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations, treaties. So you have so much evidence between all the things in the chronological order that there's no one new now that can help you. And a lot of these people are exposing themselves now. A lot of these, especially the ones in mainstream, like on X and all over Facebook, a lot of these big blue check platforms, the big ones that are drama, they're exposing themselves. You don't support what replicates the swamp. You listen to your commander-in-chief who told you. President Trump's told you, he said, they will fire someone over here in this department. They would fire people over here and then put them in this department. They never fired them outright. They just reshuffled these people. That's why it looks so atrocious. That's why most people, you've never seen a government work for you. Now, a government ain't going, like Reagan said, it's not going to work for you like that, but meaning like handout. There's a difference in you being we the people, as the Declaration of Independence outlines we the people. We're the government. They work for us. So that is when the government works for you, is when they work for us. So it's all in your ideology and your terminology of what you're hearing versus listening, or listening versus hearing. Right? The government works for us, meaning we're the people, we're the government, they are representatives of what we want. Well, they can't do what needs to be done unless you want the same old swamp, because that's what you've had. Because people forgot what? People forgot your responsibilities, your duties outlined in the Declaration of Independence. It is said it is their right, it is their duty to overthrow such government. Well, that's what we're doing. And there's not a thing in the world the liberals can do to stop it. There's not a thing in the world they should want to do to stop. But there's not a thing in the world that liberals can do to stop what's taking place. And when it's all said and done, even though it's not a destination, it's a journey, but all the stuff that's going to be unveiled with these court cases, these Supreme Court dockets, when it's all said and done, even a lot of liberals are going to be wanting justice for all of these evil, sick, and incompetent idiots that have been allowed to run rampant in D.C., which was your government, and your paychecks, and your livelihoods, which also ends up being life and death in a lot of situations. So, enjoy the journey. God put you here for a reason. You're right here. Even listening to me, you're here for a reason. God gave me a position, He put me in a spot. You're in the same position. But there's no new anything. You don't need new anything. The answers are all there. You got to separate the clutter, the drama, the propaganda, and you got to find somebody who has the capacity like I do, and there ain't anybody else out there with that capacity but me. But you got to watch me and the people I go on with too, because I quit going on certain shows as well because I know the ones who are doing what? Drama, propaganda, and also they're puppets, and they're being they're being paid behind the scenes. So, it's not personal to some, but some it is, but it's not personal mostly, it's business. All right, but it's operations when it comes to what I'm doing. Operations. And it's all outlined in laws and orders, all right, of the military that backs and supports the Constitution. But a lot of these people out there, they don't have your best interests at heart. If they did, they wouldn't mind constructive criticism from someone like me who's saying, you're misleading people with that post. You're misleading someone with this. You are disrupting your comment box. You're making your algorithms go up because you're incompetent and you don't know what's going on. And as a veteran who does and is in a certain form of operation, this ain't a popularity contest. This is a military operation with a mission and mission accomplished status along the way every time. Life and death is what military operates on. So again, it's kind of like your friends. A good friend will tell you you look fat in your dress. All right, hey, you don't need to wear that. That don't look good on you. All right. Your enemies, they'll be all right here in front, and they'll be like, "Oh man, you got a spot right here," and right at the same time they're reaching behind you and getting in your wallet. And enemies say all the right things. They look the same. They blend in. They say all the right terminology, but they do what? They never show you solutions. To what? To cure the problem. They're people who just throw out questions. Oh, what do you think about this? And then your algorithm, all the comments. So, if you want truth, you got to seek the truth. But too many people have diluted the word truth. They've diluted the word facts. They've diluted those. So the only way you can know is to know what President Trump is, who he is, and what he's doing. And the way to know who he is and what he's doing is to know the laws and orders. And it's the same way that you judge me. I've been consistent from day one. Consistent. Now, you didn't know me before August 24, 2022, and that's okay. But it doesn't mean that I came out of nowhere. I've been consistent. I came out of nowhere for a reason. And it's already been validated why I came out of nowhere. It's already been validated. They put certain veterans back in positions as well to call out all of these fakes, frauds, and phonies who are doing nothing but taking your wallet and also your emotions and your feelings, and they're replicating the swamp. So you got to drain your swamp too. And you got to listen to people who know the skill sets of what the little slight hiccups that you can't see but we can see. They say all the right things again. They're the worst ones who look like you, talk like you. They're the worst ones. And the whole point of this is to drain the swamp. It wasn't just DC. It's everybody who replicates the swamp of DC. Same thing with journalists. A lot of these people call themselves investigative journalists, but they look just like the swamp. You got to unfollow these people and stop commenting and falling for the bait. It's a bait and switch. It's a social media era. Stop commenting on their comments. That runs the algorithms up. It makes the post more visible. It's me and the good people like me, Lieutenant Colonel Bosey, Colonel Sellers, who's going to be starting his podcast up, and his wife starting one. It's the good people, Major Jim O'Connors, Brad Wozniak, John Dowling. There's a bunch of people out there. There's a bunch of people that I go on with. They're good. They've proven themselves good people. All right? That's the ones you want to get the comment box on. That's the ones you want to go in there and support. When you see the fruits of labor. But the fruits, to judge a fruit by the tree it bears, you got to know the tree. You got to know the tree, what kind of tree it is. And then you got to say, is it got thorns on it, or is that a tree I can climb? Well, how do you do that? Laws and orders. And the laws and orders outline the military operation, but it also supports the Constitution. It supports the foundation. It supports the Federalist Papers. It supports the foundation. It supports the Declaration of Independence. It supports everything of our foundation. And when you know those, then you can know what President Trump's working. It's all constitutional by laws and also military laws and military orders. So separate that. Drain your swamp. Drain your swamp. I've also told people all along the way, be careful who you judge, because some people in these higher positions, not the blue check people, I'm talking about government-wise and military-wise, some of them are playing a role too. That's what special operations is. So be careful who you judge. I kept trying to tell people, stop pinning General Flynn and I together, because he's in a whole other category than I am. He's a general. I wasn't a general. I can say what he can't. No general can comment on what I'm commenting on, because we're still in a continuity government. Partial, but we're still in one. It's a military operation. They can't, if they sneeze the wrong way, if they hesitate the wrong way on any question asked by them, and he just so happened to get all these questions over and over and over about Derek Jonhson, that he had to say something to get people to shut up about it. Right? So he had to make a clear divider. Same as I had to do. But I've told people, if you'll read the laws and orders, you'll see what he can't say, but it's there. Why did they say this? Why did they mean this? Why did President Trump go put a dash on his ball cap, which validates everything? Why did he let me around him? Why did he take photos with me? Why did I sign a publicity contract at his table, in his chair? I'm the first person to ever let sit in his chair. First person. And guess who whined and complained at that time? There were one or two members that didn't really have anything to do with politics or anything. One or two members complained because I got to sit in his chair. With the president sitting there saying it's okay. See, people will always find a way to complain and gripe about something. You can't please everybody. So you got to be careful and just be like this. Hey, don't worry about the internet. If someone offends you, don't worry about it. They got problems. They ain't exempt from problems either. And remember the word karma. So social media can't be taken too serious either, depending on who it is. So, that's why I tell people, too many people put too much stock into social media versus, like the picture I showed the other day, the cell phone right here. Get the cell phone out of your way. Go look at some of these laws and orders I talk about. Go get your head in a book. Go get your head on a computer and look at these laws and orders. Apply them. You're going to find some peace, comfort, solace, joy, happiness. And then you're also going to eliminate a lot of the clutter in your life as well and open up your life to get to do what? More fishing, more hiking, more golfing, more surfing, more traveling, whatever it is. Because you'll realize that everything is under good control. And there ain't a thing the liberals can do about it, but they're only like Dan Scavino says all the time, don't let the 10% make you think they're 90. They're not. They bark loud, they protest, but they're not. There ain't that many of them. And when the real election numbers come out, which they will, the National Guard will in control of that, 2018, 2020, 2022, 2024, don't worry, that's all coming too. Let this stuff play out. But when the numbers come out, President Trump landslided. The numbers won't even be close. It won't be as close as they even portrayed it. So just relax, chill out. Everything is going good. Everything's going gravy. And patriots, real military is in control. We're in control. So you got to chill out. All right, but be sure to share all these. I'm going to get this uploaded to Rumble. All right. And remember, so my books, these books are, if you want me to sign them, you have to go to the rattletrap1776.com. RATTLETRAP1776.com. You can also find the link on Linktree, linktr.ee/1776nation. Either way, if you're international, then you got to get them on Amazon. But President Trump's already cleaned out Amazon as well, because he has a store on Amazon now. So support President Trump as well. Go on there and get his things, all his cool hats and shirts. And also, I got some new shirts and hats, everything out. So, 1776 Nation is my overall, and I have Rattle Chap 1776 Nation, and I have Dear Jonhson Country. But 1776 Nation is the actual like club. That's like, if you want to feel like you're in a club, then that's it, baby. All right, and there's a lot of good people that follow me. They're supportive. They're great. They're supportive of others. They help you out. Matter of fact, there's one on Instagram. I wrote her not long ago. There's D is her name. She's one of the biggest patriots out there. She tags me on everything. All right, that's what you're supposed to do. If you can't repeat it like I can, tag me. I've already taken the heat. That's what I was put here for. The heat don't bother me. I was made for the heat. All right, so they don't bother me. Tag me on everything. If you can't repeat it like me, show your friends and family. Share the Rumble link this video will be on later. I'll post the link up. If you're on Instagram, make sure you come to all my other pages where you can see all my posts, because I don't post. You can't post like this on Instagram. I don't anyway, because it don't give you enough content in the comment boxes. So Instagram, y'all come over to all my pages. Linktree, linktr.ee/1776 Nation. You'll find all my social media accounts on there. All right. If it ain't on there, it ain't me. Remember that. So share these things. I've already taken the heat, got the heat, conquered the heat. There ain't no heat I can't conquer. All right. So it's already been done. I've seen every death threat on the man. I've seen everything. I'm standing. I'm here. No threats. They don't say it to your face. They're a bunch of sissies. Ain't nothing going. If it ain't happened to me, it ain't happened to you. So don't. And if someone gets mad at you, friend or family, who cares? They'll get over it. All right. If you're a real patriot, you'll have that attitude. They'll get over it. Ball your fist up and do like Tom Homan and say, "You'll get over it, or you'll meet me off this stage and say it to my face." But I guarantee you won't, because you pee sitting down. He's what he told a guy the other day. I know he had to hear me say that. But then again, Tom Homan and I have the same kind of personality. I've said that a lot. I said, I bet that guy pees sitting down. But anyway, that's just our personality, because we're tough, we're strong, we're made for that. All right. But guess who made us that way? My dad and grandpa's made us that way. It wasn't President Trump. President Trump just ignites that in us, and Tom Homan's ignites that. But my dad and grandpa's taught me to be this way. Be tough, right? Stand tall, and don't worry about everybody. So what? They got their feelings hurt. They'll get over it. All right. If the truth is the truth, and the truth has faction to it, if the truth has a layer, and it's exactly what military, and ain't nothing to apologize for, baby. Stand tall, stand tough. Look like Lieutenant Dan on that ship in the storm. Don't yell at God, but turn that around a little bit. But be like, you call this a storm? Come on, baby. We're in the most monumental, it's a biblical, monumental, historical operation known to man. Be patriotic the right way. Stand tall, stand tough. It's a good time to end this one. 3 hours and 7 minutes. We'll see y'all soon.